Do not speak. That's a do not speak. Okay. All right. All right. That's do not speak. Okay. All right. I'm flat-footed. Hey, I'm flat-footed today. Flat. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Monday, May 22nd, 2017. This is the regular Board of Education meeting. I would like to get started. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so we need to get moving here, and we'll see about just moving through the agenda. So I'll get started. I'll call this meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda tonight is the recitation of the vision statement, which is every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Okay, so let's just dive right in and get going here. First item on the agenda tonight, and first item of business is the election of officers. We'll be electing President, Vice President, Clerk, Treasurer, and Secretary today. So, the first item of business is President's office, and I'd like to open the floor for nominations. Mr. Loomis.
I'll nominate James Howard for President.
Second.
It's been moved and second. James Howard for President. Any further nominations? Any further nominations?
Tough luck, James.
Seeing none, I move that we cast an unanimous ballot in favor of James Howard being president for his final year. Well, I have not made a secret of my plans in the long term, and I try not to second guess myself or anyone else. So, I move that we cast an unanimous ballot. All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. So I'll continue as president for at least another year. Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is the vice president's position, and open the floor for nominations.
I would like to nominate Anna Moffett for vice president.
Second.
It's been moved and second for Anna Moffett as vice president. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations?
Move we close nominations.
See it? I want to make sure that you want to do this. Seeing none, I move that nominations be closed.
Second.
We moved in second. All in favor of the nomination being closed? Say aye, please.
Aye.
Then I move that we cast an unanimous ballot for Anna Moffett as vice president.
Aye.
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 All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? No opposition? Congratulations, Anna Moffett, on 7-0. So next item is the board clerk, and our current clerk is Anna Moffett. So I'll open the floor for nominations for board clerk.
Nominate Nikki.
We have a nomination for Nikki Vandermeulen for board clerk, and it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay.
Of course, cool.
Any further? Well, is there anyone else for?
I think we voted it.
I think we
just voted it.
So Nikki by unanimous ballot. You guys are fast. Okay, treasurer.
Nominate Kate.
Okay, Kate.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor for Kate as our, well, they went so fast last time, I thought they'd done it already. Any other nominations? Any other nominations for board treasurer. Any other nominations for board treasurer? Seeing none. All in favor of Kate as the next board treasurer, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations, Kate. Okay, so I think we need to.
Move them.
Yeah. We didn't do secretary? Oh, I don't have a secretary in front of me. Am I actually supposed to remember that? Okay, we need, so Mike is secretary, and I guess the real question is, Mike will continue. Do we have to nominate Mike?
I nominate Mike Berry for Secretary of the Board of Education.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
He doesn't get to talk.
All right, I think that completes the slate for 2017-18. So, name tag.
Nice sitting, Hannah. That lasted a long time.
I think I could figure out how to do it.
The clock is kind of a pain.
Yes, that's right. We should have a choice.
I always forget to start it and stuff.
So much stuff. What's next, the speakers?
Okay, I think we're ready to continue on again. Congratulations to the new board reorganization. I think we're situated for a fine year to come for 2017-18. Looking forward to it. A lot of exciting things happening, and looking forward to continuing working here and having the district stay on its positive path. So let's move on and continue to work through the agenda tonight. We have a lot of things to deal with here this evening. Okay, next item on the agenda, motion to approve the minutes dated March 27th and April 24th, 2017. I'll move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated March 27th and April 24th, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Mayor, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda will be public appearances. We have two sections for public appearances tonight. We have a lot of discussion on our budget. And so we'll take public appearances for the topic of budget, and then we'll follow with public appearances, general public appearances. So I'll call up two speakers at a time. First one will come to the podium, and the next one will be in waiting, and we'll get started. Again, I think everyone knows the rules. 3 minutes, please. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so please try to adhere to those 3 minutes. First speaker tonight will be Don Cunningham, followed by Abigail Sweets. Don, followed by Abigail.
I'm Abigail Sweats, and I'm with Dawn here, and she's scared, so I'm going first. You're welcome. I'm a middle school teacher, and I can say that without question, there is nothing more essential to closing the achievement gap and the engagement gap than smaller class sizes in early grades. At one of our staff meetings, my colleagues and I were analyzing longitudinal data for our 8th graders. We had test scores over the course of that student's time in MMSD, their entire time as a student here. After a lot of staring, one of my colleagues pushed her chair back forcibly and groaned, "It seems to me the greatest indicator of whether or not a child can read proficiently in 8th grade is whether or not that student passed their kindergarten screener." And we realized that passing that screener broke entirely along socioeconomic lines. So I urge the board to do everything in your power to reduce class sizes, especially in high-poverty elementary schools, because smaller class sizes can create a community where all, especially our most vulnerable students, can learn. And I know that there are many, many, many items on the budget. And as a middle school teacher, I know I'm affected by a lot of them more specifically than an item that might have to do with being able to keep class sizes smaller in early elementary grades. But as a middle school teacher, I would advocate for you to keep in mind that what you do in the very, very beginning of this child's education can affect the rest of their education immensely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I want to thank the teachers and the board and the administration for taking such great care of our kids and school community, first of all. I absolutely love our schools and wouldn't send my kids anywhere else for all the money in the world. We've had a couple of rough budget years, and I know that I've heard that now we're in a position to possibly reverse some of the things that we've done. When my oldest son started school, we are at a high poverty school, and when my oldest son started, the class sizes for K through 3, I think it was, were capped at 16 for SAGE rules. Then it became 16 plus a waiver to get to 18. Then it became a hard cap at 18. And last year we got +1, +2 flexibility. And when you look at the data, it doesn't look on paper like the class sizes have increased that significantly, but in some cases, they have increased, and it's made a difference. My daughter is 4 years behind him, and I've seen a difference between the experiences with the two kids. At our school, 10% of our students were identified as homeless by October. That number starts over at 0 in the fall. Most of them live in poverty, which that's just a cold statement that doesn't express all the stresses that our families experience all the time. And teachers are the ones that spend more time with our kids at those early years than anybody except for us parents. And those relationships are so important. And as we talk about family and community engagement and building relationships and the importance of that, those smaller class sizes become really important. Sometimes adding just 1 or 2 kids makes it chaotic, and I hate to say that because I love our schools, but you can feel the difference. So I am hoping that that will reinstate those class size limits and maybe take away that flexibility. I feel like we've gained some flexibility too, or lost some too, from the fact that we don't combine grades anymore. That's a separate issue, but here, I love that we prepare our kids to be college, career, and community ready. And our community and Wisconsin historically has valued progressive, high quality education, and we've always valued this small class size. I'd like us to put our money where our mouths are and spend the money on small class sizes before we put more on the plates of less people. We cannot cram 20 pounds of crap into a 10-pound bag. So please do what you can to reduce class sizes first. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Gomez Smith, followed by Laura Courtney.
Hi there. I'm here tonight to request your support for the proposal to add 2.5 FD to the Advanced Learning Department for this year. I just wanted to let everybody know that the addition of these positions will bring every elementary and middle school to a minimum baseline staffing model of a half-time position around advanced learning. In practical terms, this will create functional advanced learning positions in 9 additional elementary schools and in 6 middle schools. This is the best way that I currently see for all schools to begin to consistently implement advanced learning instruction for students who could benefit. And this will include the next comprehensive task of increasing access and support for underrepresented students to be included in advanced learning. And that includes students from low income backgrounds, from ELL, and from other groups that aren't currently represented well in advanced learning. So I ask for your support and your vote on that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, followed by Chris Carusi.
I'd like to apologize at first. I did not prepare for this at all. Even though I prepared to speak, I did not prepare a statement. So let me just say that first. So I'm with Dawn and Abby. I'd like to advocate for smaller class sizes. I'm a parent of a kindergartner. It's his first year in Madison. And I was volunteering today. Although the kids are all very sweet that are in his class, his teacher has to spend about half the time trying to manage behavior problems as opposed to actually teaching. She said when she first started in Madison, she was teaching about 12 kids with an aide. Now that class is up to 17 kids. And unfortunately, it takes away from all the other, managing behavior problems, especially in kindergarten, takes away from all the learning that happens. And I feel like if we put a little bit more into the budget for smaller class sizes and less into like technology, we're using the technology as almost a babysitter to try to, help kids learn. So again, I'd like to advocate for smaller class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, followed by Luke Grangler.
Hi, so I'm a parent in the Memorial attendance area with kids at Memorial and Jefferson. And one of the reasons we love being part of the Madison School District and public schools is that we're part of an open and democratic process in terms of running our schools and setting our budget and electing our school board. And for that reason, I'm here tonight to urge the board to reject early approval of priority actions. The Board of Education needs flexibility to respond to the concerns and priorities expressed by district families and staff and our community during the upcoming budget amendment process. While the board has been talking about the budget for a while, the community was just recently engaged. The State Journal first ran an article about the budget proposal a month ago. The administration set aside $1 million budget reserve for emerging needs, but if tonight you grant some of the requested early approvals, all but $284,000 of that reserve will be committed, so there won't be much money left for other things that might come out of community input. Moreover, pre-approving priority actions tonight means there will be less money available to reallocate out of currently proposed priority actions into things that might come out of the amendment process and community input. As you've heard, one priority being voiced by staff and parents alike is the need to reduce class sizes. At all of our schools, reducing class sizes has the potential to do many of the things you've already heard, like closing achievement gaps, addressing behavior concerns. It also, I think, will help to address some of the staff morale problems we're seeing and build positive relationships in our schools, which is central to pretty much everything. While our average class sizes in Madison may look really good, when you look at district data from the fall of 2016, we have some really large classes at some of our schools. At the K-2 level, some of our highest poverty schools, Mendota, Falk, Leopold, and Sandburg, have at least one classroom of 20 or 21 students. And as Don pointed out a few years ago, classes at high poverty schools were capped at 18, and it was even lower in years before that. Even more concerning, 3rd to 5th grade class sizes at some of our high poverty schools exceed those of the same grade levels at low poverty schools. 3rd to 5th grade classrooms at Van Hise and Chavez top out at 23 students, whereas at Leopold, Hawthorne, Schenck, Glendale, and Gompers, we've got 3rd to 5th grade classes with 28 students. In some of the largest classes, 27 in some of the others. This works against equity and trying to help some of our students who might be experiencing trauma and poverty in their lives have the same opportunity as other kids. Many of the priority actions earmarked for early approval are probably really good decisions for our district and things we should move forward on. But it's also possible that even higher priorities will emerge through the amendment process and through community feedback you receive in the next couple weeks. For that reason, I urge the vote to vote on all priority actions in June in the context of the full budget and taking community input into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke.
Hi, it's great to see you all again. It's been a while, too long, really. And Kate and Nikki, nice to meet you as well. For those who don't know, I was the student rep a few years ago. That's why all the familiar faces. But I wanted to talk today about two things, the budget and class sizes. Since I graduated from MMSD and went to UW, I graduated. Now I'm a substitute teacher here in MMSD full-time until I start grad program in secondary education in June. And I've seen a lot of our schools, probably 15, 18 of them, and I'm having a really great time in all of them. But I wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, about class sizes first. Today I was at elementary school, and it's definitely an AGR, Title I elementary school. I think it probably is one of our 5 highest free-to-reduced lunch elementary schools, and had a 4th grade class that had 28 students in it, which seems impossible. I don't even know how that is possible. I thought there was maybe something wrong with it, but I counted them, as I'm supposed to do. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think that there's a tendency in that we want to highlight the best things about our district, which I think we definitely should do, to look at staff to student ratios, or maybe even teacher to student ratios. I don't know if we're doing that, but I think that hides a lot of the problems that we have in our classrooms, which is these outliers. Last week, especially when we start combining classes, I had a gym class that had 90 students in the gym, which is not directly a class size issue because it's a combined class, but you know, if those classes weren't so large, that wouldn't be possible. It's dangerous to have 90 middle schoolers in a gym, for sure. But anyway, so I definitely think that hard caps are really where you need to head with this. I think thinking about it in any other way is really going to ignore some of the hardest issues about this. And so exploring where those could be, I think, is what you should do with this budget process. I think leaving it for the following year is really missing an opportunity. On the budget, I think making way for those priorities is important, or at least the discussion for them. So I also want to echo Chris. I think that avoiding as much pre-approval as possible would be smart, and I think that there is, I think there's a problem with doing a lot of pre-approval. I think it's over $2 million now that's proposed. For one, on the principle that there's been hardly any public airing of these ideas. The admin has had this as their priorities for a while, but it hasn't really been discussed publicly. This is before the public process for the budget, the hearings for those, and there's been a couple of days maybe for this to see it on the agenda. So I really want to urge you to do that as well. And thanks, it's great to see you all again.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. That concludes the budget portion of our public appearances tonight, and we'll move right into the general public appearances. And so our next speaker will be Anastasia Coyce, followed by Emil Berry.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Coyce, and I'm a gay, genderqueer student at Memorial High School, and I feel misrepresented and undersupported in my school. My experience as a gay student in health classes has been less than substantial. I've noticed that in health classes and sex education at Memorial High School has been catered to heterosexual, cisgendered students. I and many other LGBTQ students are left in the dark about their own sexuality and safety precautions due to the lack of understanding and effort to understand by the school district. This often leads LGBTQ students to the internet to figure out how to be safe if of a concern at all. Learning information online about safe gay sex has the possibility of being misleading and wrong entirely. It is the responsibility of the school to educate LGBTQ students on the same platform as straight students. Following coming out to my friends, that being a huge step in my own advocacy, I faced a huge disrespect from many different groups of people. I was called a dyke and a faggot to my face over and over again. What had felt like a step in the right direction in my self-acceptance quickly brought shame and confusion to my life. I came out to my family directly one day after the Supreme Court declared same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states, obviously feeling a little bit inspired. I assumed that due to this national legal acceptance that Memorial High School would take some steps to update their curriculum in health classes concerning LGBT issues. The message I got from my semester-long health class is that talking about gay sex is taboo and uncomfortable, which is not what we should be encouraging our student body to believe. Just last week, I was talking to a teacher who referred to straight sex as normal sex. Hopefully, you can all see what's problematic in that statement. In Memorial High School alone, there is a sign on the wall that states, "We believe all students can be successful if they are well understood and well supported by the entire school community." As I mentioned before, I feel neither well understood or well supported by staff or students at Memorial High School. If you truly believe, or if you truly want everyone in our diverse student body to feel safe and supported at this school and in this district, we have to educate all students on the same level as cisgendered and heterosexual students to further promote equality in our community. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Maya Berry, followed by Floyd Rose.
Hello, my name is Maya Berry, and my school is named after a slave owner. James Madison, the 4th President of the United States, was the owner to over 100 black slaves. The significance of this name and association with my school has a negative effect on Memorial's black students. The lack of representation I feel in the school makes me feel more than unsafe. I don't feel supported by the majority of staff at Memorial, especially considering the fact that I've gotten called the N-word multiple times, as long as having an individual threaten me by telling me they would lynch me. In my classes, when discussing race, I'm told that my perspective was just an opinion and nothing to take valid into consideration. My school has had dress-up days such as Pimps and Hoes, and the girls' varsity soccer team had cornrows in their hair, as if my culture is some dress-up day and something to joke about. So my thought to leave you with is, with all the injustice that I face in James Madison Memorial High School, do you truly think it's appropriate to glorify a man that enslaved my ancestors? With the education disparity between black and white students being a huge concern in the Madison School District, and if you truly care about black students, you would change the name of Memorial High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Floyd Rose, please.
Good evening. I'd like to bring to your attention and invite the school district board and administration and everyone to the 23rd annual Back to School celebration, which will be held from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at Madison College Truax campus on Wright Street, Saturday, 12 August 2017, and this is sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Madison. Our goal is to ensure a wonderful and meaningful start of the 2017-2018 school year for all students of our community. As you may be aware, over the past 22 years, the 100 Black Men of Madison have provided more than 32,000 backpacks filled with school supplies to area youth. During 2017, the Back to School celebration will endeavor to provide school supplies and, this year, vital services and exposures to more than 2,000 economically disadvantaged youth and their family. Currently, we are investigating the insertion of medical services to provide vaccinations, dental services, optical services, and a host of other resources that would be of value to MMSD students. To determine the true needs of students, we are currently speaking with student service teams of all middle schools and high schools and some elementary schools. And if I can digress for just a brief moment, in working with the middle school principals for the African American History Challenge Bowl and Project SOAR, which at this time we expect to eclipse 500 students, and hopefully during 2018 more than 1,000 students, I can share with you firsthand that the leadership is very impressive. It's diverse, talented, energetic, and they love children. And that is really a hallmark of what we believe is the future of our district. Again, please mark your calendars and join us to celebrate the opening of a most successful school year by participating in the 12 August back-to-school celebration. And if you have a lot of energy, we'd love to have you come on the 10th and help us stuff those backpacks, of which we have had more than 200 individuals representing 34 different organizations show up in the past, and it's been just a wonderful activity. Again, we feel so blessed by being able to provide this service and having the partnership with the MMSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Okay, that concludes our public speaking for tonight, and we'll continue to move on. We have, again, a lot of issues to talk about. And so next item on the agenda would be board president's announcements and reports. So first on the agenda, NAACP AXO competition gold medal winners. 6 Madison High School student gold medalists participated in the Dane County NAACP Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics competition at Edgewood College last month and will be heading to the national competition in Baltimore in July. The students are Akili Cooper, Jalen McCullough from East, Daniel Krim from West, Janae Harris and Amadou Kumar from La Follette, and DeMarco Wimbers Patton from Memorial. Now, Baltimore is the home office of NAACP, and our students will be representing themselves, their families, their peers, and the Madison School District in this important and historical academic contest. Now, congratulations on your accomplishment, and best of luck in Baltimore. And Herb Cole Excellent Scholarship awarded to La Follette Senior. Congratulations to La Follette Senior, Avery Coolio, recipient of the Herb Cole Excellent Scholarship. Now, this scholarship recognizes students who have demonstrated academic potential, outstanding leadership, citizenship, community service, integrity, and other special talents. Congratulations to the La Follette High School seniors. Also, 4 seniors named finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. MMSD continues to represent. 4 seniors from our high schools are among 2,500 nationally to be named as finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. This year's competition began in October 2015 when more than 1.6 million juniors at over 22,000 high schools took to the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Our finalists from MMSD are Jim Bryan from Madison West and 3 students from Madison Memorial, David Chin, Casey Gorgorich Trevor, and Luke Vandermeer. Each will receive a $2,500 scholarship, and congratulations to each of them. And Nancy Hanks serves as keynote speaker at the Black Women's Leadership Conference. Our own chief of elementary schools, Nancy Hanks, named one of the 100 most influential African Americans in the country by Root in 2016. Recently served as keynote speaker at the Black Women's Leadership Conference here in Madison. The themes for the conference were progress, empowerment, and collaboration. Attendees were able to enjoy workshops on collaborative entrepreneurship, wellness, African American voices in the media, and building thriving relationships. Congratulations to Nancy Hanks and the MMSD. And next we have Student Senate elections. I would like to acknowledge our outgoing Student Senate members, Amaya Sanya, Board of Education Student Representative, and Danielle Wendricks, Student Senate President and alternate Board of Education student reps. Their terms will end the last day of the school year on June 8th. And we can't say thank you enough for your hard work determination, and commitment to our district. So, as I said, we can't say thank you enough, so I think we owe you a big hand. It seems to go so fast. Did it go fast for you? Well, our incoming student senate members for the 2017-18 school year are West High School Junior, Laura Nicholas, BOE student rep, and the Memorial High School sophomore, Morton Lee, our new student senate president. I'd like to say welcome to those.
Danielle, would you please stand so we can see you? Thank you. I just wanted to recognize you. You didn't have to come up. I just wanted to congratulate you. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything you'd like to say? It's been great having you here. I think this is your last board meeting, and I don't know, let's see, we don't have a committee meeting prior to the end of schools. We do. So you'll have one more committee meeting. So just in case you want to say anything at the board meeting here, I'd like to extend the opportunity.
I'm just really excited for Laura and Morty to take on. Laura's very interested in pathways and ACP, and Morty continues to look at different ways to address the achievement gap, and I'm excited to see what they do during their term.
Thank you. Again, it's been a pleasure having you here, and hopefully you stay in touch and let us know how all the great things you're doing. So again, thanks. Okay, we'll continue to move on, and next item on the agenda will be superintendent's announcements and reports. Superintendent Cheatham.
Thank you, Board President Howard. I would love to invite Lisa Quistad and Mike Berry to join me. Give them just a moment to get themselves settled. Thanks again for having us tonight for yet another budget presentation. I've lost count since we started back in the fall. Tonight we want to accomplish a few things. We want to give you an update on what has happened since we presented the draft preliminary budget to you back in April. We want to provide some financial context to support you in your decision making. And we wanted to ask you to consider a vote tonight on the list of early approvals. Yeah, Mike, could you click that for me? Thanks. So I'll start with a few updates. As a reminder, and thanks to your approval, in this last month, we've modified the health insurance plan, going from a 3 HMO model to a 2 HMO model. Which allows us to redirect $3 million in savings to support salary and wages generally, to increase summer school and beginning teacher salaries, which have been much needed. And we're already putting that to work in our recruitment efforts for next year and for this summer. Tonight, this is on the consent list. Is that right, Mike? It's on the consent list. We're recommending a new carrier for life and long-term disability insurance, which will save us almost $250,000 per year without any change to employee benefits. And I also wanted to highlight, just really as a reminder and in part because of the class size discussion we've been having, that we've built 12 unallocated teacher positions into the budget, which is doubling the unallocated positions in this past year. This will allow us to proactively and strategically improve class size in the coming weeks and months. Now that our students are actually being rostered, which is helpful, we can start making those adjustments based on need. And our approach, because our class sizes on average are very favorable in the district. It allows us to focus on those outliers that you heard several of our speakers mention today. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. Along the road here, we've also been actively answering questions from the board related to budget. We've had that board tracker of questions going since the beginning, and I think we are probably approaching about 70 quite detailed and sophisticated questions from the board, and we're going to keep responding to you. You're certainly keeping us on our toes, which will make sure that this is an excellent budget when you approve it in June. Mike, can you go to the next slide? At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Mike to say just a few things about the context for decision making.
So it might seem that we've been at this an awfully long time to still have such big funding variables as unknown in the budget. After all, this budget starts July 1st, right? Just about 6 weeks from now. And yet, this always happens in those 2-year increments where the state budget is up for renewal, that we go down to the wire on K-12 funding. It just seems like it's like a law of physics that we have to push this to the last second. So the big variables here are the per pupil categorical aid. This ultimately affects MMSD's total funds available. The governor proposed $200 per pupil back in February. That number's been back and forth a little bit. We don't really know where it's going to land or whether it's going to be tied to a 12% employee premium contribution. We are monitoring those two issues, and if so, we have a plan for that 12% EPC, as we've discussed in previous meetings. The other big variable is equalization aid. We deal with this one every year because the aid is so volatile. It impacts the fall levy more than anything else. We are a little nervous about a potential 15% aid loss. That will ultimately be decided based on current year actual statewide results. Nobody knows this year's actual statewide results yet. There will be an estimate published July 1, and then there'll be an actual published on October 15th, which means we have to live with this uncertainty all the way through the month of October. Back to the current moment and where we are with the 17-18 proposal. In preparing this budget, we did leave some room open for the sort of April, May, June issues that surface, and to be able to respond to those. There is a $1 million unassigned budget allocation in the 17-18 proposal. Tonight, you'll see advanced learner and BEP plans, which will use, if approved, $716,000, leaving $284,000 unassigned. And Lisa will talk a little bit more about the specifics around those advanced learner and BEP plans in a few minutes. The other part of the budget that, aside from annual revenue, annual expenditure, spending plan, that we're keeping an eye on is the overall tax levy. This is very much related to the slide you saw a minute ago about equalization aid. Back in November of 16, the community very generously and strongly supported our referendum to exceed the state revenue limit formula. But with that came our estimates and what the actual tax impact would be. And our estimate at the time was a 3.97% maximum increase for the fall of 17. And it's really important that we keep that sort of implied contract almost in mind as we're setting the levy. State equalization aid, of course, is the reciprocal of a local tax levy. That's the variable that we have to keep an eye on. We want to assure the board that there's a number of different ways we can get to, or I should say not exceed, a 3.97% tax levy. I don't want to go into all of them tonight because they get kind of involved, but we can certainly discuss it in June. The key thing is we know how to get there, and we want to show you multiple ways to do it. We don't want to preclude you from getting to a 3.97% levy. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who'll go through the sort of the final actions, these sort of April BEP and advanced learner initiatives that we have for you, and then I think we'll have a couple slides to wrap it up after that.
Okay, I wanted to talk just a little bit about two of the sort of post-budget book modifications that we have talked about previously, but so this is part of the $1 million that Mike referenced just a few slides ago. So the first post-budget book modification that we are proposing tonight is to add some FTE back to our advanced learning IRT team. As you know, we've hired Dr. Ethan Netterstrom. He has been on board, I want to say, a whole 2 months here, and has done really a quick study of the schools that we have out there, and you've heard from some of our public speakers tonight about the importance of providing a consistent base of support for advanced learning in each of the schools so that more students of color have access and more currently identified students have access to advanced opportunities. So this provides a stable base in our schools of advanced learning support. It also allows Ethan support around the other domain areas, creativity, leadership, and the arts, and it provides Ethan with the opportunity to deliberately focus on high school, which really does need a special eye moving forward, especially around access to advanced placement and advanced coursework. So our second post-budget book modification was around the behavior education plan. I actually feel like we just talked about this, but I'm going to give you all a summary about this as well. So there are 4 areas that we listened a week ago and took your feedback, and we hope that you see that in the slide tonight. You'll see some costs around 2 FTE for behavior education specialists, whose purpose is to support and monitor implementation of our behavior education plan with a particular eye towards the secondary level. We've talked a lot about our program quality at LEAP and NEON, and just a reminder that this next line, the FTE, is not about expanding seats at those programs, but more about meeting the individual needs of students and maximizing the seats that are within those 2 programs. We have an FTE for a security assistant to be sure that we are adequately staffing our high schools around needs related to the tasks that a security assistant provides. And then also with an eye towards adding space at a more appropriate setting. Olin Avenue, we'd like to reduce the use of our Hoyt location, which is less than ideal, and expand to a better spot that could more appropriately serve students. So those 2 areas, advanced learning and then the BEP, are post-budget book modifications that I wanted to run through for you all tonight. So the next slide, before I go to that, I will, Jen, is there anything that you wanted to say about those 2 before we go to the early approvals?
No, but do you want to do the early approvals, or do you want me?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So this is the full summary of our proposal on early approvals. I want to say a couple words about just early approvals generally. Just a reminder to the board that this is not a new practice. This is something that we typically do in May each year. There are a few reasons that we bring you a set of early approvals each year, and those are these 3. The first is when it comes to hiring, we want to make sure that we are sensitive to the labor market. And if we wait until the end of June to hire, we will likely lose potential candidates to other jobs or other jobs outside of the district. So it's important for us to be able to move forward swiftly with hiring if we want to get the best and brightest for these critical roles. The second is because we want to make sure that we can execute on any key summer professional development that's planned. And third, there are sometimes items that are a little more facilities related, and you'll see this come up in consent a bit too tonight, that require installation. We just need to get things going, ordering installation this summer, and you'll see that show up on this list when it comes to the classroom infrastructure for technology integration. So those are generally the reasons we bring early approvals to the board. Some years we have very few, and others we have more. And even though we call them early approvals, but I do want to remind the board that May isn't exactly early. We're very close to the end of the school year and very close to the end of the budget process that's been underway for many months now. This list has kind of 3 chunks in it. A through I consists of a subset of the priority actions that are already embedded in our budget. Items J through N are related to the behavior education plan items that have emerged in the past month that Lisa just went through. And then item O is the final item related to advanced learning that Lisa just went over, which has also emerged in the past month. So at that point, I'll leave it there, and I'll actually pass it back to James for discussion on anything that we've presented thus far, and then allow you, James, to move into a vote on the early approvals.
Yes. Okay, early approvals is on the table, and Mr. Merckx?
I got a couple questions. I don't actually have it. I'm going to go from top to bottom, and not too many, though, at least. Just some clarification questions on this. We'll start with H. And this is probably for Mike, which is the G3 infrastructure. If I recall correctly, in the budget book itself, it's G3 and G4 to be funded out of the partially funded classroom infrastructure, partially funded out of the 17-18 budget. And I'm not clear on how much G4 is being anticipated in the 17-18.
Sure. I don't have the dollar amount at the top of my head. But I can tell you that
$200,000 classroom stuff, 400. Just
most likely, it's the classroom infrastructure for the following year.
Right.
Again, probably leased over 2 years. Probably $500,000 in total, $250,000 each year. And then along with the preparation work that the staff development PD that happens with the G4 schools in this coming year. This is their prep year prior to implementation. So there's some soft costs as well.
And then a related question. With the G2 classroom things, two or 3 year leases? I guess I'm wondering when the lease to own ends on the G2 items.
Yeah, G2 is a 36-month lease on the student devices.
And on the classroom stuff?
Always 2 years and always lease to own on the classroom infrastructure.
So when the G4 comes, the second year of the G4 and the second year of the G3, the G2 will drop off.
Yes, that's right.
Okay,
that's
and
right.
we might have to do some replacements because this equipment will be 3 years old, but just trying to figure out the flow of the budget there.
Right.
And that was my understanding, but I kind of wanted to confirm it.
Okay.
This is actually for Lisa, which is in relation to the BEP stuff. Is the Welcoming Schools position and training costs still among the general priority actions in light of the 2 BEP specialist positions that are in the early?
Correct. Those
Okay.
two are still in the priority actions. Yep.
Just confirming to make sure that there wasn't a reemphasis there.
Correct.
And I don't know who this one's for, but would it be correct to characterize the security position as what we call a floater position with subs?
Yes.
And that was
yes.
Yeah, okay. That was.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted?
I was just going to clarify for TJ in part that the amount there, the 258,658 for Group 3 on line H, is consistent with the consent memo, the annual lease payment cost for 17-18. So you may...
I was trying to go back and forth, and especially the 2014, the G4 stuff. I wanted to see how it fit together with the G3.
Got it.
And that was the piece that I was
You're
trying
missing.
to figure out.
Okay, thanks, TJ.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out some structure here for this early approval conversation. We had talked about doing a consent style, but for me, I don't see the motion being consistent with consent style, because if we approve this motion, if we make this motion and approve it, then we've actually approved all the items.
Yeah, Dylan sent out a new consent, or the motion that you have in front of you is to approve everything. Is that right?
Right. So
if someone wished to separate an item, that would be an amendment to that motion. So with the exception of 00, since that's not one.
Okay, so I think then what we need to do is identify what items people want to separate out, and then we'll make the motion for the rest of the remaining items.
Sounds good.
That's typically how we do it in consent.
Yep.
So to have some organization around this, around these pre-approvals. So I'd like to ask then if there are any of these pre-approvals that people or board members like to separate out for discussion, or will it be all of them?
That might be. I'd like to separate out the Avid expansion because of...
Do you have a letter for that?
C, in order to recuse myself from that vote.
Okay, and so when you separate out, you give me a letter, that'd be helpful? Okay.
I would like to separate out letter B, OMGE teacher leaders for
B-O-N-G?
Letter B, and then it's OMGE teacher leaders.
Oh, okay. I see.
OMG?
Yeah.
And also, for discussion, letter E, the 2.0 PST. Letter J, 2.0 BEP specialists. And letter O, 2.5 FTE advanced learning.
Anna, are those for discussion or for voting purposes?
Well,
or to be determined?
I don't know, I guess to be determined.
Okay.
Any others to be separate?
I'll let Dean go.
Okay. F. Okay. TJ?
K, the space rental for Owen.
Okay.
And I would like L.
Which one, Nikki?
L, the special ed teacher.
L?
Yep.
We just go one by one.
Yeah. I guess
is that all of them almost?
That are,
I
don't think so.
Myself a puzzle.
So I'm just wondering if it's not worth at least having the discussion and then just verifying before we do motion by motion by motion. Because if the discussion is satisfactory, then there is less that needs to be separate. Mary's is clearly not going to go back in, but some others.
Yeah. Why don't we just go through? I mean, it looks like we have one.
There looks to be 6 that nobody pulled.
Yeah.
There's 6 that are not pulled?
Yeah.
Let's start with B and just touch on all the items that, is that all right with you, James? We'll have the discussion first. We'll start with B and we'll touch on everything that someone wanted to discuss.
Okay, we'll just take them in order. See if I can give them in order. So first item up will be B, and B is Anna.
So I just wanted to bring this up for further discussion. I know I had asked via board email that it's teacher leaders for K-12 ESL support, but then it was added that it would be to support DLI schools. So I'm trying to make sense because ESL, DLI, DBE are all different instructional approaches to serve ELL students. I just want a better explanation about what these positions are going to be doing.
Yeah, thank you. So they are 2.0 teacher leaders to support They're coming from Title I, actually, so they will be focused at Title I schools. Some of our Title I schools have bilingual programming in them, as we all know. And we want these folks to be able to support schools as they serve ELLs, if they are in DLI programs or not, but they are not specific DLI supporting positions. They will be supporting both ESL students and high-quality instruction in DLI classrooms, so it's a both and. We've had schools more schools have requested ESL redesign processes, and so some of this was to support the need that we haven't been able to meet out there for schools that really want to look at that whole structured approach to redesigning ESL services. So we really want to see this as really a both and, but not a specific DLI teacher leader. I will be honest and say that as DLI expands into our middle and high schools, we actually do need to support those programs as well moving forward. So it's more of a holistic approach to supporting ELLs as a group of students.
So around the discussion around ESL redesign, like, can you give an example of what that might be? Or what are folks asking for?
Sure. So for example, Lakeview Elementary School has, as a whole school, engaged in the ESL redesign process. It is a lengthy professional development process with set days during the years, coaching, site visits. There's professional development in the summer, and it really takes a dedicated, really school-based teacher leader, so someone from OMGE to stick with Lakeview for more than 1 year, even in that whole process, so that teachers can continue to feel supported. SIOP at the secondary level would be another example of that for our middle schools and high schools.
Lisa,
so we have schools that are ready.
Pull the mic closer so people can hear.
A little closer.
I can't hear either,
so
pull it closer.
We have schools that have asked for it that we have had to turn away, and this was one of the ways that we felt we could give schools the support that they had been asking for.
Yeah, so ESL redesign is just one thing that a specialist might be working on, which is about service delivery for ELLs, but it may be professional development in something like SIOP or GLAD. Like Lisa said, it's more of a generalist who really understands high quality support for ELLs.
I think we're also, to be honest, we're feeling the pinch of that 5 FTE cut we made several years ago, and want to be sure that we are both supporting our ESL students who are not in bilingual environments, as well as being sure that we have high quality bilingual classrooms. So part of this is to really go back and fill some of the gaps that we're starting to experience from that prior cut.
A couple kind of general comments first, which is as I approach budget additions, whether they're early approvals or they're priority actions or there are even reallocations around things, clearly with some exceptions, but I've been beginning with the thinking that school-based positions are more of a priority for me than Doyle-based positions, and recognizing the need for support from Doyle and how crucial that can be in some instances. And secondarily, that classroom positions are more of a priority for me than school-based non-classroom positions. And again, not across the board, but just kind of a way to start thinking about things. And these are Doyle-based non-classroom positions, and so I just want to set my biases or something on the table as far as that goes. The second thing I've been looking at with particularly the early approvals is, but more generally also, is that trying to find positions where, what's it look like if we do half of this? What's it look like if rather than having 2 new FTEs, we do 1? Similar things with the pathways and others. And if at this point it's an early approval, we do an early approval around a single FTE, there's nothing that stops us from in June doing a second FTE in this case and doing the other half. I understand the advantages of early hiring disappear for that second position, and that there are disadvantages to taking that approach. But I guess that I'd like to hear from both other board members and administrators about how they feel about that general idea that we do partial early approvals, that we don't, and that we save and reserve till board members have had an opportunity to make amendments, till we've had an opportunity to review the state budget situation, till we've had a fuller picture at this point, and that we do kind of a pause on partial early approvals. So I wanted to throw that out there as a generalized approach, and that I would, there's 2 or 3 things here at least where my inclination is to apply that approach. So not making a formal proposal at this time, but seeing what kind of reaction that gets.
Hey, Nikki.
I'd have, I'm trying to figure out how to turn this one on. I would have to agree with TJ on that, on the partial. I think there are certain areas where we have no choice. We have to do it to get the best and the brightest, but there are other areas, especially part-time positions or a 0.5 in that we can wait and then see, instead of rushing a decision that may not need to be rushed.
Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, my pulling on the 5 pathway was a similar reason. Maybe we just do 2 and 3, and we can go ahead and do the higher cert. But we've had some compelling emails and testimony about reducing class size, not just today, but all week. And our staff has weighed in, and this is one thing that they feel they would prefer. We've had, now there, does that automatically improve achievement? We're not certain. But in many cases, we do know that 1 or 2 less helps behavior. We do know that. So are things that we know about the benefits of reducing class sizes and keeping it hard. And with 284 left, which is all we have, and 11 unallocated, that's 12. Those are opportunities that to be able to address that need. But between now and 4 weeks, are there, would we consider the reallocating more towards firm reductions in class sizes in areas, not only what we've guaranteed so far from K through 3, but expand into some other areas where we know that there are class sizes of 30 or more. So, which is not to say I wouldn't support the full 5 for, well, it's not 18 here, it's, well, it's 18 on the board doc. F, yeah. So I do support that because I think pathways is a great idea. However, I also think making a commitment to class size reduction is important. So if we wait another, do half, as similar to, so in one way I understand that spirit. Let's just do half maybe for some of these and then rehash more conversation around the benefits of class size, and is that a priority we want to make above these, and flip it around, and we'll either put everything back in June or increase opportunities to reduce class size.
So basically the proposal or the suggestion calls for this partial early approval is so that we can gain another 30 days to discuss whether or not we need to go all out with all these early approvals. 2 or 3 things that I'd like administration to address, though. We're hearing a lot about class sizes, and first of all, before we go to class size, I'm going to talk about the 5 FTEs for the pathways. I'm a little bit concerned about slowing that one down because it's new and it's just getting off the ground. And so I'm a little concerned with the, you know, the hesitancy around pathways because, you know, it's, again, we're just getting off the ground with pathways. I do think there's some merit in what you're talking about here, but I do wonder about the pathways. So just want to put that out there in terms of pathways. I'm concerned that we don't slow down pathways. The earlier, the small class sizes and the unallocated. There's a lot of concern around growth in class sizes that's been stated here. Can we talk a little bit about the administrative plans and how you see the class size being addressed through the increase in our unallocated?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, James. And Lisa, feel free to chime in on this. The class size question is not new to our conversation, as you know. The board has advocated for us to look very closely at class sizes for months now. And we've discussed it at these meetings. Previously, we discussed the pros and cons of hard caps versus a more targeted strategy. We've looked at our class sizes over time in comparison with other districts. I mean, I just want to remind everyone that this isn't like exactly late and breaking news, and I do appreciate the advocacy. And we support low class sizes. No, we're not in conflict over this. I do want a couple of thoughts based on the board's previous feedback and our discussion about class size. That is why we increased the unallocated pool. We added $500,000 into the budget, above and beyond what we already did through the workbook process, where we probably added over a dozen positions during the workbook season itself. So post workbooks closing, we added another $500,000 of unallocated into the budget. That's the 12 positions. I want to make sure that we're understanding that we have tried to respond to that original push. Our original thought on the unallocated was to target them specifically at the early grades, K-3. The board's response to that, generally at the time, was that they were worried about some of the outliers at grades 4 and 5 and didn't want the use of those unallocated to be limited to K-3. So we expanded it to an unallocated pool that would serve K through 5 across all elementary schools of the district. That is not including the unallocated that is set aside for special ed positions and for positions that support English language learners. So that's regular ed positions above and beyond the others. Our thought on this, as you know, has been that would allow us to address that fairly smaller, it is a small number of outlier positions. You can see, I threw this in the deck, just in case this discussion came up tonight, to just give a little reminder of the history of our class sizes at the early grades, which has been a particular concern. And you can see up here when it comes to AGR that our projected class size is as low as it was back in 12-13. And that's without the unallocated applied, right? This is projected without the 12 unallocated applied, which means that number is likely going to come down even more. In terms of non-AGR, we are about one position higher than we typically have been. But again, that is without the unallocated applied, which I think will bring that number down even more. So I worry that there's been this story out there that the class size at elementary has increased dramatically. We do think there are outliers that we have to address, and we want to, and that's what the unallocated is for. So bringing this to full closure, I do think the board has an opportunity to bolster that even more, right? Even if you took the $250,000 or whatever that last little chunk is, and added and put that all into unallocated to help us address class size issues even further. I mean, that's certainly in the board's discretion. So Kelly, would you add anything to that, Lise? I'm so sorry, James. I just want to make sure there's nothing else key that I missed.
No, I would just reiterate something that you alluded to is these next couple of months are really key for us.
Yeah.
So these next couple of months are actually when secretaries are now rolling classes of students up. So we actually can see who's enrolled, who's on Infinite Campus. Remember, the workbooks are done on projections. Not always perfect, we know that. And as Jen said, we actually added a dozen back already in the workbook process when I met with principals, and they said, you're off here, your projection's way off, or you're way under. We made some adjustments during the workbook process, and now when we start to roll numbers of students into actual sections for next year, we will get even a cleaner picture of who's out there. You know, staffing and classrooms it's a very human process, and students are mobile and families move, so we're monitoring moving forward and want to be as responsible and responsive as we can over the next couple of months, based now on actual kids who have enrolled and who are within our systems.
Okay, Ms. Moffitt.
So my question around the unallocated, I know I put in a request a few days ago around putting hard caps at 18 in our AGR K through 3 classrooms. I've been trying to find the email, I can't. I believe it was about, was it 1.5? 1.7.
1.7.
And was it 8 FTE? Huh? I don't recall. So the reason I bring it up is that I think initially when we talked about class size, I know for me that what I questioned with administration's plan is that it wasn't looking at class size in our AGR school, it was actually putting caps or bringing it down on our non-AGR, which I do think is important, but I think it's critical that in particular in our higher poverty schools, when the class sizes is moving up, we want to make sure that we're trying to maintain it at the optimal level. So my question is around these unallocated positions. So if the argument for early hire is that we want to get the best and the brightest, I'm questioning why we wouldn't apply that to, do we want to open that option to classroom teachers? Because I would think that we really do want the best and the brightest in our classroom. And if we wait till several weeks before the school starts, I don't think we'll get that, and I think we cause undue stress for schools. And I think historically, when we look at the trends for class size in our district, we typically have 2 added, it's like 2 to 1. We are more frequently adding classrooms to deal with additional students than we're closing or collapsing classrooms. So when we get into that practice, I think we create more instability because then we're doing a lot of shifting and this type of stuff. So I don't know if the possibility is here either, but if we have these positions set aside and in reserve, what would people's thoughts on the board say, well, we're going to allocate some of these towards reducing class size in K through 3 AGR and putting some caps on those classes?
Anna, a couple of thoughts. One is, the staffing plan is already being put into action. So we are using that unallocated pool already, starting now on a rolling basis, to address any outliers that exist in the district. We have to hire teachers now, right, if we're going to get the best and brightest. I agree with that, and that's how we're functioning. Our worry about caps, use the word optimal class size, and there is a suboptimal class size on the low end too. And when you create caps on class size, you can create class sizes of 10. I mean, as we've run those numbers, and I think we sent some of that information to you already, I think that's a real challenge, and which again is why we think it's really important not to create hard caps that would create a new problem for us. But that's the same argument I shared with you before, just for what it's worth.
Okay, Mary?
I think the move to include the unallocated is really wise, and I am not so concerned about whether these early approvals should be basically reallocated, and we should put more towards an issue that we aren't even defining right now exactly what it is. It seems to me that it's sort of a response that isn't necessarily calibrated to knowing what the issue is going to be in September when we've already put resources there. My issue perhaps is even much bigger than that. My issue is that we're adding 20 positions that that are going to lock us in for a long time. We don't make hiring decisions, well, we think we need this for this year. And I spoke last fall, I think, when we were talking about additional areas that we would be making investments, and saying I wasn't in favor of anything unless it really showed that it was working towards moving the needle and making progress. And I have to say, with almost all of these, it doesn't mean that they don't. I'm just not convinced that they are. And I'm not sure we're going to be in this position where we can be adding 20 more positions. And if we want to be doing things on a scale that will move the needle in the district, they're not going to be year-to-year decisions. We don't ever have, we will not have that leeway in the budget. We almost have to be able to put ourselves in a position where we build up some capacity to then be able to make additional investments. We've certainly done that with the technology. That was a big, big amount that we continue to say that every school, every student, we want to be able to have that access. But as we look at class sizes, I don't think it's the issue of 6 more positions across the district here. I think about some of the stories that we have heard about our high schools having math classes with students that are significantly behind grade level in math, and that they have 28, 29, 30 students. I don't know how kids are going to be able to catch up and make progress with classes that large. So what I would love to do is be able to retain more flexibility as much as possible and go into this next year, our year in our 5-year planning cycle, and really look at the things that we can build on, that we know are working, that absolutely have to happen, and that we don't lock ourselves into additional positions this year just because we have the money to spend, because it locks us in for a long time and takes away our flexibility to be able to make much larger investments that we know will pay off.
So I just want to make sure before I move over to the next board member that I understood what you were saying. So basically, flexibility means fewer positions now.
Yeah, it would.
Okay. All right, Mr. Merckx.
3 or 4 things, and I actually didn't want to talk much about class sizes tonight, but and I did, and for a couple of reasons. And I guess I can start with that. Is that Mary is correct that we're talking about something in a very general thing. Class sizes and what's important mean different things to different people. In the high school class sizes, and the high poverty, low poverty, the K2 versus 3, 4, 5. There's a whole lot of different versions of it, and in terms of where we are in the process. You know, I asked for some cost outs on various different class size things, received those on Friday. In the next week, I will be offering a number of amendments addressing different aspects of class sizes for the board's consideration and the public's consideration. And at that point, we will have something concrete, at least, that we can talk about it in terms of. Addressing the idea of hard caps, you know, I understand that when you have hard caps, it does produce suboptimal class sizes, no matter what your hard cap is. If your hard cap is 30, you can still end up with a section that is 12 or 15. I do think that a discussion of what is, you know, and maybe this is because I've been you know, my older child went to schools in Wisconsin during the SAGE years, and that hard cap is kind of how I thought about things and really shaped my thinking around class sizes, the hard cap of 15, which was something that we are far from now. And understanding the downsize and the sweet spots in terms of numbers. But I don't think we should just reject hard caps outright. I think we should be careful how we use them. And then the third thing is kind of addressing Mary's about commitments and flexibility and going forward. And, you know, I hadn't actually counted the FTEs, and when Mary said 20 FTEs, I'm ashamed of myself that I hadn't counted, but that kind of, no, I know, it's there. And I just, you know, it kind of hit home. One of the things I think that, you know, in theory, any FTE we add, we can, through attrition and other means, get rid of, but some are harder to get rid of in the future than others. And one of the things that I've been thinking about and discussing with people is that, you know, going into the strategic planning process, looking for flexibility going forward, understanding that this is a year where we have more budget flexibility than we probably will have in the next couple of years, though maybe, you know, you never know for sure. Understanding all that, my feeling is, and we'd catch hell for it next year, but that parking budget flexibility and class size reduction for 1 year is easier to move away from because of attrition than it is to add an administrator and add an up or add this or change the formula around ALRTs and then try to change it back the following year. And I mean, and neither one of those is easy to do. And I'm not pretending that, oh, this is a breeze. But I do think that, you know, the idea of parking money, if we want to set aside money for flexibility in the coming years, I think that parking it in class size, at least if partially or fully in class size reduction for the time being, is better than not spending it on our students at all. So that's just a philosophical idea.
Well, TJ, could I just respond to that? I mean, I agree, TJ, that you have much more flexibility with when you're hiring in a position that has 500 people already in that position, and you can then make that. The only thing is we know with each dollar that we spend, we will get 50 cents less in state aid next year. That's regardless, right? That's just how the state aid is going to work. And so if we don't need it, it's not like we lose the money necessarily. We could put money into our fund, yes, which has been going down in recent years. It then provides that buffer to be able to make larger investments. So I would not spend, I agree with you, TJ, not disagreeing, but I also think that since every dollar we spend costs us 50 cents more next year, that there are really other reasons to say that perhaps being able to increase our fund balance and being able to then support really targeted long-term investments where we see that we can really move the needle has benefits to it.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
What do I do here? Okay, is this on? Yeah. A couple of things. maybe I'll just start with a question. I think class size has come up a couple of times. Certainly, we heard it a lot tonight from public comments. And this, I guess, for anyone here. But can you just help me understand what do we believe we get with really keeping class sizes at quite low levels, right? So I mean, I don't know. You can flip back to that page, but it's 16. At our AGR schools-ish, basically. I mean, it looks like a big difference over the last 5 years, but it's all within a half a person, right? So how do we move forward with that is the question. I mean, taxpayers, I think, approved a referendum so that we could move forward, right? So can we change and be better?
Well, we said the referendum, though, was about we wouldn't have to cut.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think we all want to continue to address the achievement gap. College, career, community ready continues to change as college, career, and community changes, right? So I guess it feels like small class sizes is a tool we've used and continue to use, and I struggle to see. First of all, where do we go if it's less than 16? But what do we get for that in terms of I mean, you said measurable, right? That this works, and feel like we've done that. But I also I'm new, so it's a question really for those of you who feel strongly about it.
I actually am not convinced. I think the research shows that it matters at what grade. It does matter. I mean, there's a lot. I just believe we need to study it. I think we need to be able to look at our own schools and see what's really working. I just think we need to take a step back and not say that it's the panacea. I agree. I think that there's evidence on both sides, and certainly in the lower the grade, the greater the evidence is. That's why my belief is that it should be part of an entire review of what we really believe should be our long-term highest leverage. And it could be class sizes, but maybe it's something else.
Okay, are you? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you done, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I took a look around just to try to ground myself in some of what other districts do, right? And I mean, I couldn't find a single other district with class sizes as small as ours. I looked at Boston and Texas and California, all of whom don't have even under 20 at kindergarten as caps. They all have higher graduation rates than us for African American students, for Latino students. And so I guess I'm kind of saying the same thing, as I'm just not sure if it's the right thing either way, and I wouldn't want to hold us back from hiring at least the things that we all agree on in this list. I do want to hire the best and the brightest for the at least the new positions that we're in agreement should be there. So. Okay,
could we put back? Could we put the early approval list back up, please?
I had to scratch.
Okay, we need to. You had a question for
Lisa? Yeah. What's the current status of straight grades? I know that at least one or two elementary schools have not fully implemented straight grades, but I don't know if it's 3 or 4 or.
The vast majority of our schools are straight grades. Where I see multi-age out there, some of it is around a differential in numbers between dual language immersion, bilingual classrooms and monolingual classrooms. But we have allocated to those schools as if they were straight grades. And actually, one of our schools that was multi-age last year, the principal came to us with a straight grade staffing plan, and we actually reinstated at 2 of the grade levels for straight grade. But that is our intention, to allocate based on straight grade.
And just from the context of that is that in terms of class size efficiencies and suboptimal class sizes, the multi-grade classrooms gave a flexibility that made it less likely you would end up with classes of 10 And that's why I was asking what our current status was.
Sure, yeah, because there are fluctuations between and amongst grades.
Right.
Where you have bubble
yeah,
classes.
I mean, you can do combined grades, and you can, you know, you can do that, but you can't do that if you're doing straight grades. That's why I was asking where we were.
It's still allowed, but it's not the typical practice anymore.
Okay, what I've heard is that there seems to be some opposition to 20 FTEs. And we can sit here and go through this over and over again and spend hours, and I'm not sure that's the approach to take here. And what I hear is that the opposition is just for the early approval, that maybe we come back in a month and after looking at it. So to move this conversation along, unless someone object, I think what was put on the table is maybe we do. Now the question is, how do you do it? Let's say if we go with 10 FTEs. The question is, how do you do it? Do we have some particular FTEs that we think should go forward? Or do we just say administration make a decision? I personally like to see, I don't want to see us slow down pathways. If we're going to do pathways, it's just getting off the ground that we need to, in my view anyway, that we need to make sure that we don't hamstring pathways if we're going to do it. And I believe we've agreed to do pathways. So, which means that the administration would have flexibility on 5 positions. If we were to go pathways, if we're going 10 and so that's pathways plus 5. So, like I said, I don't know how to structure it, but that's what I'm hearing. So if someone has a better suggestion, please let it be heard. Ms. Moffitt.
Yeah, you bring up the 5.5 in the pathways plan and that we agreed to it. I did want clarification around the 2.0 PST building-based FTE, because are those the 2 PSTs that we put into the special education plan budget?
Correct. They are the 2 from the special ed plan budget that would also provide that stable base in each school of program support teachers for special education. We know that those PSTs handle all the initial evaluations. There's sort of a balance of supports between cross-categorical teachers in the building and PSTs with designated roles and responsibilities.
I just feel that since we voted on that special education plan and those were 2 FTEs within the plan, that they should be preserved.
The 2 FTEs for the, which number?
They're the
13.
They're E 2.0.
E.
And they're different than the BEP specialists.
So I'm advocating here for F5. So you got F is equal to 5, E is equal to 2. So, Mr. Mertz.
Nobody pulled the director of early learning or the lead counselor. So that's 1.33 that nobody pulled off the consent. If we're treating this as a consent,
okay.
Those 2, and I'm just saying nobody pulled them, which to me means that there was unanimous support for them.
Yeah.
So that's first observation. Second one is that I don't consider the 5.0 with the AVID untouchable, and for
with the AVID, or
I'm not the AVID, the ACP and pathways for kind of 2 reasons. One is that we changed the implementation timeline. And I think that in light of changing the implementation timeline, we can adjust the next year's staffing down a little bit. I think that the burdens that we're asking them to pick up will be smaller because of that. And secondarily, I think that you know, I respect what you say about that this is new and you want it to work, but I have a feeling that we have these, you know, these programs and initiatives and these things that are, you know, that are in the brochures, and that we tend to, you know, prioritize those against things like over things like geometry classes, which are unglamorous and day-to-day things, and I understand, and I think to a certain degree that you do have to, with new things, you have to, you know, give it good seed money and cultivate it and give it conditions where it can grow. But there's a balance between the 2, and I think that, you know, reducing the 5 FTE to 3.5 or 3 or something like that would perhaps be, you know, so you said the 5 is something that you feel strongly like. I feel strongly that we should not eliminate the 5, but I don't. But I feel that we should be open to reducing the 5.
I think that's
The 5, just to clarify, the 5
It's a
is
bunch of
part
point
of
threes.
16, though, right?
Yeah.
There are other
Existing.
pathways existing.
Yes.
So it's incremental. The 5 is on top of
Yes.
12 others. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, yes.
Yes.
Before we move on, I just want to make sure one other thing here. Where is it? Oh, I see. I see where it is. Okay. All right, Nikki.
As I said, I'm new, but at the same point, from what I have in my notes, no one pulled out A, G, H, I, M, and N. So can we do a consent vote on those?
I think D wasn't pulled
We're
either.
talking about the FTEs. Are those all associated with FTEs?
They're not.
They're dealing with, yes, they do.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
some
they
do.
do.
Yeah. D doesn't. Some do. Some do. Some do. And I doesn't.
Because we talked about the ones we didn't pull out.
I does, actually.
And that came to, I thought, 1.33.
I might have missed one of the ones that Nikki picked up on. So is that correct, Dylan, the ones that Nikki listed?
She missed one, yeah.
A, D, G, H, I, M, and N were not pulled as ones to be separated
Okay.
from a
Say that
consent.
list again.
A, D, G, H, I, M, and N.
Okay, so the question is, are there
0.53.
Yes.
So how many FTEs?
2.53, 3.53, is that correct?
1, 2.
3. There's the .20 under I.
So is it 3.33?
3.53?
So is it, what is it?
Yeah, 3.33.
3.53?
Mary and I agree. So if we're going to be wrong, we're going to be wrong together. Kate, help us out here.
Although I'd offer it'd be quite confusing to approve just a lump sum FTE versus the specific items.
Say that again.
It would be confusing to approve
would
just
be.
a
It would
lump
be.
sum FTE versus the specific item. So we could still do, because there's actually no motion yet,
Right.
the motion to approve items A, D, G, H, I, M, N as set for early approval as set forth in the presentation, and then you could individually go through the ones that were separated out.
That's a good suggestion. I think we were heading that way, but you got us there
Yeah.
quicker.
Thank you,
That was the
Dylan.
original.
Working on it.
So
Thanks, Dylan.
we'll take that as a motion, and that's for the 3.53.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on 3.53? That's those that we did not pull from the list.
It's, right, it's each of those numbers, because it's 3.53 or 3.33 FTE with additional operating budget, like impact that might not be FTE. So I just want to be clear, it's for those items.
And that includes.
Clarification, James.
Yes,
I don't think Dylan can move, so maybe I'll move it, someone else can second.
that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll
So
second it.
Dean moved and Nikki seconded. So, and we're at discussion.
So what we've moved is approval of the early approvals without, other than those that had been separated.
That's right.
And that's the motion on, and
Right.
so
That's
we'll
the
take this up.
3.53.
And though it is confusing and not the best way to do this in terms of we're going to do lump sum FTEs, I think that conceptually tracking that is helpful for the discussion, though I don't think we should vote in that way. So that's, but, no, I mean, you know. So it's,
So I guess if we're holding ourselves to kind of a cap of FTEs, I guess I would say on G is in there, right? I would prioritize something else over G.
Well,
or
before we
is
move forward that way
okay.
here, let's sort of just go through this list once. So we have the 3.53 or 3.3? We have that we have on the table now, and you recommend that we don't vote on it that way? I'm not sure
what
why
I'm
not.
recommending, what I'm recommending is that the vote will be all the early approvals that were not separated.
Right.
And that if board members want to think about that as X point something FTEs, that's great, but the vote is not on FTEs, it is on the items that were not separated.
Right,
And that's
okay,
all
I understand.
That's all I was saying. That's all I was
what I was
saying.
getting confused.
We're in agreement. We're in agreement.
And now I think Kate says that the .33 is not, that maybe she wants to separate that.
Of the unallocated?
Of G.
Okay, so we're not there yet.
Yeah.
G is in there.
We are, so if she wants to.
Oh, G is in that.
Yes.
So, well,
I'm
that's,
trying to follow.
there's no FTEs, what did you want to?
Yeah,
G has .33.
Oh, okay, District 3, .33. So what did you want to separate out?
Just letter G.
G.
So you just want?
Letter G.
Letter G.
You want to take out G out of this?
Sorry.
All right, so we're going
That's a
to
late
add,
separation.
we have to add G up here.
Have to be difficult, don't
Okay.
you, Kate?
Circle it.
Okay, so G is gone. So the motion remains with the exclusion of G.
The modified motion is for items A, D, H, I, M, and N as set forth in the early approval request included in the presentation prepared for the May 22nd, 2017 regular board meeting.
Thank you, Dean. Nick,
I'll move that.
Yes.
I second it.
It's been moved in second. Okay, any further discussion? Mayor, your advisory vote, please.
Aye.
Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that part carries 7-0. Okay, now, and that's 3.53 FTs. So if we can move through this other section here.
There it shows 3.3.
3.33.
3.0.
3.2, with 3.2 FTEs, if that's how we're tracking it.
All
Plus
right.
2.5.
I had 3.3, 3.2.
3.2.
Isn't it 3.0?
That's the one we took out.
The .2 on ninth grade success.
Oh,
.2 something.
Everybody keeps
No,
missing
you're right.
I. Everyone
Thank
keeps
you.
missing that one.
Okay. No, I know, sorry about that. That's what I kept missing.
Okay, so we've done B, so E was, E was Anna. Did we discuss E, Anna? Is there a question about E?
That's where we started.
Yes, yes. And that's, I was asking because they're part of the behavior education plan.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the 2.0 PST FTE.
so we're moving item E?
E.
Moving forward, could I recommend that we just continue our trend of identifying it by item number? So move item E as set forth in the early approval request.
Okay.
That way we'll be able to keep track of everything. Sorry to be bossy.
That's good. So, okay, so we have item E. So next item is F.
Well, it's been moved and seconded. We have to vote on it.
Have we seconded?
Discussion.
Mary second, okay. It's been moved by Anna, second by Mary. Any further questions or comments? Mayor, your advisory vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Okay.
Can we note Amaya's look on her face?
Yeah, that's what was cracking me up.
So 1, 2, 3.0. Okay, F.
So are we going to do B and C?
Let's do.
I thought we did B.
I'll make a motion on B.
Okay.
I move that we add one OMGE teacher leader for K-12 ESL support as described in the, what's it described in?
Item B.
An item in item B, that we approve for funding of, what is it, $97,000.
We moved it. Any
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Jen?
I'm not planning on defending every item, you guys. I do want to remind the board that I realize that this is technically an ad. We're asking for 2 more positions, but we cut 5 positions from this department a couple of years ago. And so we're working on restoring, not all 5, but 2 of the positions in this department that serves almost 30% of our student body. That's it. All I have to say.
Okay.
It's also the only part of our student body that's growing. Our African-American population is declining, our white population is declining, our Latino population is increasing, and our ELL, separate from Spanish speaking, is increasing. So in terms of kind of positioning for the future, it would, you know, again, in the whole list of things, this feels to me like an area for our district to be investing
Well, let's
in.
remember that we can come back and increase.
Yeah.
So let's remember that. Okay, so it's been moved in second. Amelia, vice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. And that was B. All right.
I'll make a motion on C,
Is that for 1 and 2?
which is, I've looked at, let me give a background, then make a motion. I've looked at the projected enrollments for the current 11th grade enrollments for AVID in all the schools, because this is to add a 12th grade section at both La Follette and East. The current 11th grade enrollment, if data dashboard is correct, for East is 61 students, assuming no attrition, and historically there's been attrition in AVID over the summer. That would give us, under current funding, 2 12th grade sections, of one of 30 and one of 31. I think that a 12th grade AVID section is kids who, you know, still need support, but they're kids who are on track, and kids who a classroom of 30 is not going to be hugely difficult. In contrast, there are currently 76 students enrolled in 11th grade AVID at La Follette, and I can see a real need to add a 3rd section at La Follette. So I would move to fund a 3rd section at La Follette for $20,000 and not a 3rd section for East.
I'll second to discuss this.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Do administrators want to comment on that at all?
No, I have the sections here, and the recommendation was to move, as TJ said, to an additional section for seniors at both La Follette and at East, and to keep those class sizes low.
So you're basically saying no increase at East, but an increase at La Follette?
Yeah, because I mean, again, you know, everybody knows I love smaller class sizes. I think that given the class sizes of our core classes at our high schools, that a 12th grade AVID class can be at 31, and that's only if and it only reaches that if there's no attrition over the summer. And my guess is that they'll end up being 29, 28, something like that. And to me, that's acceptable. It's not ideal. I'd rather have them smaller, but it's not ideal. But it's acceptable. So that's my proposal.
Okay, Dean?
As far as Lisa or someone, is that accurate, the attrition between junior to senior? Does that traditionally happen?
I don't have the exact numbers on attrition, but I know that we have been enrolling 3 sections, moving up from freshman, sophomore, junior, and that would be another 3 sections at senior, going from 3 sections to 3 sections rather than 3 sections down into 2. I don't know if Alex has any other specific numbers on that.
Langston is in the audience, actually, if you wanted to consult him. Hey, Langston, want to come on up here for a second? I just want to make sure you have accurate information if you're
Yeah, and if data
making this
dashboard, I
decision.
pulled the enrollments off of data dashboard this week, and so if those aren't accurate, I stand corrected. And again, I can see a real need at La Follette to add a section. There's
Hi, Langston. Welcome to the board table.
Hello?
Hello.
The question is about the attrition in the sections.
Yes.
It varies from year to year. There's often not a lot between junior and senior year. Most of the time we keep most students unless they move. In terms of the rationale for keeping 3 sections, at both schools, they have been in the 3 classes from their freshman year and have built these communities. And the opportunity to continue that and stay with those same teachers and continue that community through their senior year is something that we built into the planning of the AVID community and how AVID works and some of the power of AVID when students are able to stay together. So that was some of the thinking.
So, okay, so you're advocating then for 3-3 and keep it the same. Okay.
So I need some clarification. Currently, the 61 at East are in 3 sections of 2020-21?
Correct.
And similarly at La Follette?
Yes, there's currently 3 sections of juniors at both schools.
Oh, and so why wasn't that already in place for senior year?
Yeah.
In terms of these students are currently juniors, they're
similar
going to roll
allocation
up.
for this, why wasn't that already in place in the plan? Is there senior AVID classes right now?
There are 2 with 45 and 50 currently in the senior classes.
2 sections there?
At 2 sections this year. The plan was always to roll up. We started with 3 freshman sections. The plan was always to keep these 3 sections all the way through senior year.
Yeah. When will we know how many are in there next September? Will we have to wait till September till we know the final number?
The actual number, we
Yeah.
would know when they would register.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you.
During the fall enrollment, we would know for
And
sure.
we'd have an opportunity with
we don't
perhaps-
typically lose very many students
Yeah.
from junior to senior year.
Yeah, he's already commented that attrition typically is very low.
I think that if, I agree that attrition, that, as I said, 2 or 3 students, that it's not going to be a whole lot. I think that if you vote in favor of this, you have to accept that 12th grade AVID classes of 30 and 31 are acceptable to you.
Yes.
If you think those are too large, then you should vote against this.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's my,
That's
and
right. So,
it's
the motion's on the floor, and has it been seconded?
Second.
It's been seconded by Nikki, okay. Are there any other questions needed to be asked here? Do we need to move along? Okay. Thank you, I think it's clear to me. Amaya, your advisory vote.
Nay.
All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed?
So we got a tie.
And it's 3-3.
Go fast.
So it fails. Okay, so, all right, so that was, thank you, Langston. That was, so we're at D?
No.
E.
No, we still have to,
Right, so
I had an
B-
alternate motion, so
So C as divided in half of the proposal is what did not currently pass. So there is an opportunity to there's an opportunity to make a new motion around something for AVID expansion.
I would move to make the motion for AVID expansion to have 3 sections at East, 3 sections in La Follette,
So as set forth in item C.
as set forth in item C.
Second. Okay, any questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Mayor. Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries 6-1. 5-1-1.
5-1.
5-1-1.
Okay,
Okay,
so that was
pathway F.
That's pathways, but we did pathways. There was a recommendation from going from 5 to 3.
But we
So
haven't
we haven't-
made a
Right.
motion or
Okay,
voted on it.
You made the recommendation.
I'll make a
to 3.
motion.
Yes.
On F, that we fund 3 FTE at the dollar figure of, what are we calling them, $80,000 apiece? So 3 would be 24,000?
86.
What's it, 86? Somebody do the math, I didn't do the math for this.
86.
What's that, 86? 3 at 86 is, Mike? 24 at 6 and 258. At $258,000, and to leave the administration's discretion how these FTE are distributed among those listed in item F. That's the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Amir? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Jay.
That surprised me. J.
Did G get passed? No,
G.
G got.
This is you, Kate.
Kate, a little closer to
Wait,
the
where are we? We're on J, aren't we?
G.
Oh, we're on G.
G.
Make sure you push this forward.
Yeah, so I pulled it in
okay,
part
you
because
guys got an order.
one of the ones
Yeah,
that
it's
I,
over here. I just didn't have it.
Still push it a little closer. I'm having a hard time.
Okay.
wait for him to be back. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. I pulled it in part just because I think this is about prioritization, and there's some things farther down the list that I would prioritize higher. I see us investing in quite a number of ways in high school, through pathways, through AVID. This is another high school focused intervention, and one of the later ads for advanced learning, our AL group supports 5,000 students right now with 22 staff. TJ, keep me honest.
22.5.
22.5 says TJ. And I think we have opportunity to improve. We have a new leader for advanced learning, and I'd like to give him some flexibility to do that. So I pulled G in part because in a world where we're prioritizing, another intervention at high school to me would be lower priority than some of the things sort of J through O on the list. I don't know how you want to run that or run
Yeah, I'm
with
not
it,
sure when you come at advanced learner. Advanced learner really is.
It's the last one.
Yeah, so.
I don't want it to get squeezed out because it happens to be last on our list. That's all. So.
You mean advanced learner last one?
Correct.
Right, it won't get squeezed out. Okay, but the G is the lead counselor, and so.
So I guess.
So you just want, that was just informational?
I pulled it because I see us investing in multiple different ways at the high school level, potentially overlapping ways. And so in a world where we're trying to retain flexibility to make step changes in where we're going, that wouldn't be at the top for me.
So do we have are we going to make a motion for G, or is this information?
Question.
Question, Mr. Merritt.
And perhaps Lisa or Jed can answer this. Currently, we have the lead counselor position is 2/3 time, correct?
Correct.
Was that?
Yes.
And is it a position where the person is 2/3 time and 1/3 something else, or is it a position where they are 2/3 time?
They're
okay.
part-time.
I just wasn't sure about that. So in terms of early approval, it would be nice, beyond nice. It would be good in many, many, many ways to give this person the stability and also to have them working over the summer as a full-time person.
I think it's
No
important
question.
to note that the person who's in the position will not be the person taking the position moving forward.
Ah, okay, that's good to know.
That's correct.
That's
It would
good
be
to know. I mean, that
So this
changes
would
the dynamic.
prevent us from being able to hire the lead counselor for the district.
Okay.
At least we'd have to wait until after June.
And that's good to know. That's, it's, I mean, that's new information.
Yeah.
Um,
And the reason, as long as we're at it, is it's been a challenge not to have an employee who has been capable of working for full-time in that role. So that is essentially why we're advocating for the change.
So you're trying to get that up to full-time?
Yeah,
And
we need it.
one more,
It's the only
one
head
more
of counseling
question,
for the
just
whole
refreshing.
district.
This is designated as a NUT position, not a teacher contract position?
Correct.
Okay, just confirming that.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we have like a head of social work, a head of, the person who does training for all the social workers in the district. This is the only central office counseling position in the entire district. This is it, guys. So.
Okay, I think we should have a motion for G. Dean?
Yeah, okay. I move we accept this position with the language that Dylan says we should use. You want to, I forget what it is.
Move to approve item G for early approval.
Yeah.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, Mayor, your advisory vote? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Okay, we're at J.
All right, that's me. 2.0 BEP specialist. In looking at this, this was one that gives a little bit concern for me. I feel that in our schools we do have, I know there's a discussion around wanting professional development, and I understand that. I do feel like we have staff that can provide that, and I'm just wondering around the BEP as whether that money would better be left aside to try some other practices that perhaps we haven't tried yet. I don't see many new ideas in what we've allocated for the BEP, kind of more people in the positions. My only concern is then that would tie up funds if there were other ideas that came forward through the discussion about addressing behavior in the schools.
Okay, Nick.
I have to agree with Anna. As big as I am on special ed and disability rights, I'm also about new ideas. And right now, with the focus on the punitive nature of the behavior education plan, I'm not sure that that's the best way to spend that money.
Okay.
James, because we didn't get an opportunity to speak on number 5 before the vote, I'm going to try to interject myself every time before it happens.
Number 5.
Yeah, number 5 on pathways. So, just stating that for the record. But I would like for Lisa to have a chance to talk a little bit more about the 2 BEP specialists, totally respecting that the board may want to pause on that. Can Lisa speak on the BEP
yes,
specialist?
I mean, that ship has sailed, but yeah.
You didn't vote on it yet.
Yes, we.
It's just a discussion. No,
yes, we did.
On the pending item.
This is Jay.
She's asking on
pulled
J.
it for discussion. I wanted to hear more about it. I
On
know
J.
we put the 2 PSTs in for.
She's at J. What are you?
I'm on J too.
Everybody's at J.
Oh, you're at J. Okay.
We're all at J.
I just want an opportunity to
You're
speak
saying
on J
pathways.
before there's any
I want to
motion and
clarify
vote.
what the role would be. The 2 PSTs that we put in the BEP are around data collection. I read something that talked about monitoring data at the high
Okay,
school.
we're on J. Yeah, I thought you said pathways.
Oh yeah, if you want to go back to F and give us a shot at it, I'd love to try that. But yeah, we're on J.
So just as a reminder, we actually cut external PBS coaches a couple years ago on Leah's team there. So this is about reinstating some of those with a particular focus on secondary. So they would be supporting schools around data collection and implementation of the BEP to make sure we're complying with policy. They would be in the schools monitoring implementation with school teams. They would be supporting schools, and something that we've been working on all year, and it's about that alternatives to suspension programming. It's about peace rooms, setting up restorative peace rooms, planning rooms, or restorative in-school suspension. We've been working with all of our schools and our advisory groups on that to make sure that those interventions are actually meaningful and restorative. There would be, of course, some job-embedded coaching to ensure that professional development is aligned with the work UMOSHA has been doing around in-school suspension. It would be supporting this notion of student services coordination. I've talked with some of you all about that in the, when we did our BEP briefings together. Coordinating the work of people who are either student services members or BEP staff members, bringing those people together intentionally every week to review data and actually review if the interventions are working with kids. Engaging and monitoring what school, like, is it actually working? Are the interventions actually working? Having the time to talk about that. And then also making sure that resources are being allocated and utilized effectively in schools so that they're actually meeting the needs of students in ways that are most impactful and in ways that are most coordinated. So we know that this year when we took a look at that data and saw that spike that we saw and really looked to double down and refocus on that, it took some really intensive work from Leah's team to get back out there. It was sort of an all hands on deck. So this is really a reinstatement of that support for the whole MTSS system, not just PBIS, but also intervention and the other tiered supports.
Okay, haven't heard that. I think we should, Dylan, you want to give us a motion for that one? For Jay?
Yeah. Move to approve item J as set forth in the early approval request and the presentation prepared for the May 22nd, 2017 regular board meeting.
All right.
I'll move that.
Dean has moved.
Second.
It's been seconded by Nikki. Any questions, final questions or comments? Okay, Mayor, your advisory vote.
Nay.
All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, we're at K.
I pulled K. People who've seen me on the board for the last years know that I hate space rentals. I think that we own a hell of a lot of real estate and a hell of a lot of buildings, and that it's got to be something real special for me to support a space rental. And though from what I have heard, not in both conversation and less so in the documentation on this space rental, I think that there may be a good reason for this in the future, but there's not a fully developed plan for the use of the space. And before I can support $60,000 for a space that may be used for by as few as 2 or 3 students next year, again, in the context that we own a heck of a lot of real estate and buildings, I'd have to see the fully developed plan for a therapeutic school and its staffing and the potential number of kids who would enroll in it and things like that. Perhaps before we are done with this budget approvals in the next month, that plan could come forth and it could convince me to support a space rental, but at this time, I can't. So that's why I pulled it.
Okay. The Hoyt facility is a multi-use facility, got MSCR and those people over there. So can you speak to, why we're moving to Olin quickly here? I mean, we want a dedicated space for those individuals. We feel that that would be more productive. I mean, we have, I don't know how many different units in Hoyt right now.
So we do have multiple programs at Hoyt right now, including MSCR and some community-based programs, and we also have some students with very challenging needs at Hoyt that are in some of our alternative programs. And at times, those communities of folks don't necessarily match up, shall I say, or live peacefully amongst each other. So the thought around expanding the space at Olin would be to provide a bit of relief and provide more individualized need and support for some students for whom Hoyt is not a match and is not their least restrictive environment.
You're saying it's not part of the LRE?
Well, it has not proven to be, how shall I say, it has not proven to be the best facility. There are lots of other people using that space, which sometimes prohibits the ability of students who are in alternative programs to have all of their needs met there. And the idea was to provide additional space at Olin, bless you, so that services could be more fully implemented with fidelity at a space that had less of a mixed use, shall I say.
Okay, any?
Just have a quick question.
Yes.
How many students would be using it? Ballpark.
Yeah, it's a small number. Mike, do you
While
have
you're
more?
looking at that, let me make a comment about a distinction between the priority action, which is versus why it's an early approval,
And this is purely practical, and it's from the lessons we learned last summer when we opened up new sites on Gammon Road and here at Olin. The process of negotiating the lease, getting the permits pulled, getting the construction done. Yes, it can be done quickly, but last summer we had to pull a lot of people off of the other school projects. Very practical. If we're going to do this, we'd love to be able to get a jump on it as early as tomorrow.
Thanks for that. I think that's
In the
important.
language in the budget item is, I'll just read it. It's pretty plain. For space rental for alternative program, reducing the need to use the Hoyt building, which we feel is inadequate for some of our programs. Okay. That's just how it's documented. Just to clarify the language.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Mayor, your advisory vote, please. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposition, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-3. Okay, we're on L.
I called that one.
Okay.
My issue with L, I know this is the LEAP and NEON. I just wanted some more clarification because I was talking with Anna and I've been talking with a lot of people. I want to make sure it's not an expansion, which they said, but also I know it's being used often for students who are under court order, like a restraining order, and have to be educated separately. And I just wanted to know if you could speak a little on the use of those staff members.
So we do know that we have some students who attend LEAP or NEON that have some very challenging needs, including students who might be under a court order or who might need to be in a different group of students or within a smaller group of students. So this additional staff provides us with the flexibility to provide a more individualized or small group experience, maybe outside of LEAP or NEON. That space, I mean.
Okay, yeah.
Just a follow-up question to that. Do you feel like these FTEs may be time limited? I guess I'm just wondering because what happens if a student moves, then would we be revisiting that? Or?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I was actually thinking about that today because our placements in LEAP and NEON are sometimes temporary based on the needs of a student and the goals in the IEP. So I actually could see those positions as being, while permanent positions, flexible in terms of placement, depending on the needs of the students and the different sites.
Okay. Can we have Dean's motion?
Motion to approve item L of the early approval request is set forth in the presentation for the May 22nd, 2017 regular board meeting.
We do L and L together.
L and
M already went through.
Yeah. We only have one left after this. So it's been moved by Dean.
Seconded.
And been seconded by Nikki. Any final questions or comments? Mayor, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? We got 2 opposed, so motion carries 5-2. Okay, final pre-approval item is O. I believe that's the
advanced learners.
Advanced learner. And I believe Anna pulled advanced learner.
I only pulled it for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Merks?
I'll start the discussion. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. I don't think anyone at this table is satisfied with our advanced learner programs and services at this time. And the question is whether at this time this is the right way to address that. And for me, it's not. I'll go back to those original principles that I talked about, which was that favoring classroom-based positions over non-classroom positions. These are non-classroom positions. In a larger sense, you know, I had high hopes for the AL evaluation to shed some light on the roles of our IRTs, what we should expect from them, what they're actually doing with their time, and what's working. And unfortunately, due to some limitations, some of them related to our staffing changes here, you know, having gone through all 500 odd pages of the material with that, I don't find a heck of a lot of knowledge and insight there. And it leaves me still wondering about how we are using IRTs and how we've defined them and how we can refine those. And adding a position with such uncertainty, adding to a position with such uncertainty about it makes me uncomfortable. I clearly recognize also that the IRT staffing, if that's the model we're going with, it produces some real challenges for some of our schools, particularly those schools that have a 0.3 staffing. But I also understand that we have schools that range from approximately 200 to schools that range to 2,000, if we want to just say keep K-8 to almost 900 or a little under 900, and that this model of 1/2 per student seems to me to be per school seems to me to be terribly inefficient use of our resources, and that if the AL department came forward with a plan that was based on both, you know, this is the minimum staffing we have per school, this is the staffing formula we are using for our IRTs based on both general population, previously identified students, some kind of formula that said this would be how we want to go forward, and in order to implement this formula we need 2.5 more IRTs. I'm not going to promise to support that once it happens, but I would certainly be open to that. There would be the kind of thing where there would be something there that I could say, but to add 2.5 to take the existing formula from, to get rid of the 0.3 schools, to me, it doesn't seem worth the investment. And as Mary has pointed out, that you know, I look at it, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but last year we cut 2 AL IRTs, this year we're adding 2.5. These are hard positions to cut. Did we cut 2 last year or 2.3? I can't remember. Anybody remember?
I think it was 2.
Was it 2?
Was it 1?
1. Yeah, I mean, none of us remember. But my point is that these are difficult positions, and so I would rather have a staffing plan, an AL plan, a defined role for IRTs, all that in place before I start adding to it. So I will be voting against these, and for those reasons, you know, again, it's not, it's for now. So.
I, as a lawyer, go back to the legal issue. We have an Office of Civil Rights complaint that specifically says that we're not handling it correctly. Although this doesn't speak to that directly, what it does say is we're not putting enough time into advanced learners. So I'm going to do whatever I can to increase it, although that doesn't go directly to the issue, and I understand that, teacher. And I get that, but at the same point, to not support it almost, to me, sounds like we're telling the court we will do exactly what we were ordered and nothing more. And to me, I think that sets a bad precedent.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think we probably talked about 2 reasons why I'm going to support it, because we have decreased the advanced learner staffing and over the last year or 2. The OCR issue, Office of Civil Rights issue, I think is important. And again, I don't know exactly that this will resolve or solve that issue, the complaints around underrepresentation of people of color in the district, but I don't see that functioning at a decreased staff from last year, how that's going to help us. Also, we have a new person in the lead role. I think it's important to offer support to folks that are new. I believe that. And so that we don't want a year from now to come back and have those people telling us that, well, we didn't provide this support needed to carry out the task. So I will be supporting this. I think it's important that we support this and that we make sure we have enough staff. That OCR report is very important. one of the issues we've had for a long time is underrepresentation in those classrooms. And so, again, whether to speak directly to that, I can't say, but we know that cutting the staffing and not improving it won't help us either. Mr. Loomis.
Yeah, that is another issue that we need to speak to, along with the allocation increase. You would hope that this would be reflected in the glaringly disparity levels that this program has presented for way too many years. So I think that this should help. It sounds like it should help, but along with it we have to get another report on the plan that was better last year to make sure that these opportunities are offered across the board, and even better for clearly a group that has been really left out of these opportunities. So the plan has to increase that recruitment to all of our kids in ways that matter, and then have the staff there to have the classes available to them. So I think that this is should help address that issue.
All right, Dr. Dean, Anna?
Sure. This is another one that I'm really concerned about. It's a struggle for me. I think other people have mentioned it around the table that historically this is a program that has not included a diverse student body. I feel that the practices of students getting into the program in many ways are discriminatory towards a variety of different demographic groups, including our ELL students, our students in poverty, our students of color, as well as our students with disabilities. So with that being said, it's difficult to support, but I could support it with moving forward, seeing that we're looking at these practices and changing them, because I have not seen changes in the past few years. It's been the same stuff. And using these FTEs, people really have to look at what they're doing and how are you going to change it so that you can serve a wider student population. Because I do believe that part of this does lead to significant inequity in our district that we see now. So.
Ms. Paula.
I just do want to clarify that it wasn't an OCR complaint. It was a directed review. That there isn't a court order. It was a negotiated resolution agreement. And there was no finding that our practices were on their face discriminatory, but we do have disproportionate outcomes and that we need to take steps to address those. So that was a little of the lawyer in me just trying to, but I do think.
And I misstated that, sorry, Dylan.
I do think that OCR, through some of the findings, did at least ask us to look at our IRT distributions. They did not say, here is the formula that is the magic number or that would work. And this also piggybacks on our use of our lead counselor to a 1.0 to improve our 612 counseling services.
Right.
Because the OCR resolution agreement was about access to advanced coursework beyond even AL identification, but starting in kindergarten to identify early will hopefully improve through 12th grade.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply that they had been found. I was just saying, in my opinion, I find them to be discriminatory.
Okay. And I'm the one who misstated it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, may your advisory vote, please. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Opposed. Okay, motion carries 5-2. Okay, I think that concludes our pre-approvals for tonight. And thanks everyone for the yeoman's work in this area.
James, before we wrap this up, is it all right if Mike just does a quick preview of what's to come on budget?
Yes.
We've gone this far. We're 2.5 hours into the meeting. I figure, why not?
Make it quick, I bet you'd like me to. I'm assuming you'd like me to move quickly through this slide.
Yes, we would.
Assuming there's no undue influence by the Russian government, this is what we're going to do. We'll be together June 13th in operations work group. That's where we'll do the rest of the heavy lifting on this budget. 26 is to adopt, and then we go into the next fiscal year. We don't know when the state budget is going to get approved. Either late June or early July is typical, and then school begins in September. We'll be back in November for final budget adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lisa. Okay.
And that concludes the superintendent's portion of the meeting.
and thanks for that report, Jen. Okay, let's move on here. We're at the consent items. Okay, take a deep breath. We're at the consent items. And so I'm going to move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all the motions set forth in Section C of the electronic agenda prepared for the month and day 2016 for the, is that a specific month and day?
May 22nd.
May 22nd,
2017, right?
Yes.
That's today.
Hey, it's my name.
Okay, for May 22nd, 2020, well, where does 16 come from? 2017. Regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. Now, by voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second.
Been moved and second. Are there any separations?
Yes, I'd like to separate 6.7, Avid Contract for Services, and 6.29, Grant for Harvard Doctor of Education Leadership Program.
Okay, any others?
I don't have separations, but there are two items I'd like to just make comments on before we vote.
Okay.
So just letting you know that.
Sounds good. Any other separations? Seeing none, I think we'll take your comments now.
Okay. I'd like to make comments on 631, allocation of CUNA Mutual gift balance to Forward Madison first. And I very, very much appreciate CUNA's support, ongoing support for the Forward Madison. I've been a supporter of the Forward Madison work since the beginning. However, in this case, and I think we should definitely accept a grant and use it as they wish, in this case, I find it a little disconcerting that we are using grant money to hire an administrative director for a program and we don't have sustained funding for the core activities of this program, particularly the mentorships. And that in some ways we put the cart before the horse in doing this. And so much appreciation for CUNA, but a little discomfort with how this is going on. And then the other one is 635, which is the Human Resources Transaction Report. And I just want to make a comment, and I was going through this, that we have a number of principals contracts. Some of them are interim principals turning into principals. Some of them are principals that have been hired from outside. Some of them are Madison people who have been promoted. And it struck me that one of the things we've discussed when we did administrative compensation studies in the past was that the pay scales for our principals don't reflect the demands on our principals, that we start middle school principals at one level regardless of the size of the school. In this case, we have a school that's well under 100 students. We start elementary school principals on one scale depending on their previous experience, both local and elsewhere, which is well below that of the middle school, even if the school might have 600 students, as Chavez does, which is on the list at this time. And when we hire these new principals under these structures, you know, good faith and loyalty means that we've grandfathered them into these structures, which means that we've lost the opportunity to hire them into a new structure. And I don't think we can say, hey, you know, we're creating a new middle school, we're creating a new structure for paying principals, and you're getting a $10,000 cut. We can't do that to them. So I think that opportunity to create a new compensation structure for our principals has to move up in our priorities, that we have to do this. We've been talking about it for 2 or 3 years. And these 6 or 7 on the human resources report today really just kind of made me say, let's light a fire under that activity. And so that's why I wanted to comment on it. I don't want to not approve any of these. I just wanted to light that fire.
We're in complete agreement with that, TJ, and it's been something we've wanted to do for quite some time.
All right, thanks. Thank you for the comments. Anna?
I'm sorry, it was in regard to 6.8 around developmental designs curriculum. And I'm not separating it, but I did want to make the comment that I understand part of the reason is that there is this component that responsive classrooms we weren't able to work with them in the capacity that we wanted to. My only concerns is when I look at developmental design, it looks to be a mid-level curriculum for social emotional development, and so I am concerned that we're losing a piece of the responsive classrooms that really focused on a better understanding around social emotional skills, self-regulation, this type of stuff that I feel is really the foundation to a lot of behavior and belonging and that type of stuff. So that was just a concern, that when I looked at the two curricula, that was one place where it seemed like they differed.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mayor, your advisory vote, please. Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
I think it's an abstention.
6-0. Who abstained? Nick abstained. Okay, 6-0. Okay, Mary, 6.7.
I only want to recuse myself to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest.
Okay, so then I'll move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure to the Avid Center for 2017-18 Avid Implementation Agreement not to exceed $80,310 with funding from the 2017-18 Curriculum and Instruction General Avid Budget.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Questions, comments? Seeing none, Mayor, your advisory vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0.
6-0.
6-0. I didn't vote,
I
but I would have
recused
been.
myself.
Yes,
Oh, okay, 6-0-1.
I meant to vote, I just didn't. Call it a 6-0. Call it 6-0.
6-0-1. Okay, Mary, 6.29.
Same thing, recuse myself to avoid conflict of interest.
Okay. All right, 6.29. I move that the Board of Education accept a grant from the Great Lakes Guarantee Corporation in the amount of $75,000 to support hosting a Harvard EDLD resident for the 17-18 school year.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any further comments, questions? Mayor, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0-1. Okay, I think that concludes our consent agenda items for the night. And next item on the agenda will be instructional work group. Mr. Merck.
Hello. Our last meeting was on, I don't even know what date it was on, but the two topics on the agenda were personal pathways update, and I think that most of that concentrated on the implementation for the first cohort this year and the selection process for the subject areas for the second cohort. And a further update, I think we had a strong discussion on that. We also had a action item on the agenda, which was our high-intensity partnership renewal on behavioral health in schools. And there is a motion associated with that, and I will make that motion. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure of $103,000 to implement a memorandum of understanding for a 2-year renewal for the high-intensity partnership of behavioral health in schools as set forth in the documents prepared for the May 22nd to 2017 regular meeting, with funding from the 2017-18 Student Services operating budget, donations, grants, and insurance reimbursement.
Second.
Been moved and second.
Any discussion or comments? Mayor, your advisory vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 7-0. We will meet on June 5th. We have the instructional work group has 2 topics. We will get an advanced learning update. Maybe some of what I was talking about tonight will be included in that. And we will also get an update on the adolescent learner / middle school project, which will be the minor on the agenda.
I'm so sorry, TJ. I thought we took that off and it's going as a memo separately to the board.
It's simply a memo as
Yeah.
okay, I misunderstood. Lisa and I had a conversation immediately before the meeting, and I misunderstood what Lisa said.
No problem. We're going to prioritize it for the start of the year, which is my understanding from your discussion as the chair of the work
Again,
group.
I misunderstood my conversation with Lisa because I went to check with her on that, and my fault. So it will be the advanced learner plan and nothing else. There is
right? Okay. Yes.
The June calendar is not on board. Was not on board docs when I checked. So I'm going from intelligence gathering here.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We'll have a meeting June 5th.
We will, and it'll be focused on advanced learning.
Anna, you have a comment?
I just had a question in regard to the memos when we're taking it off the agenda and then we're getting a memo providing information. Is that a memo that's open to the public or is that an internal board document?
I think that's a really good question. Dylan, do you want to respond to that? I mean, anything is open to a public records request from the board, but it would not be posted on the website.
The only reason I ask
correct.
is because we were supposed to have alternative education on the agenda and it got pulled and then it was put into a memo, and so I guess I was thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, it won't be posted on the website, but we will bring it to the public board meeting in the fall at some point. Okay.
Okay, Ms. Mercer.
I'm done.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, operations. Mary.
Okay, I am reporting on the operations work group held on May 8th, and we reviewed the proposed preliminary budget, which we have covered earlier in this meeting, and along with the behavior education policy review. We also held a meeting last Monday, May 15th, to go over those policy changes and any other updates regarding the BEP. So with that, we are going to move the changes to the BEP as a consent, or like a consent item, and I will read that motion, and board members will be able to separate any changes that they would like to see from that. So I move that the Board of Education approve the revisions to board policies 4502B, Behavior Education Plan for Elementary Students, and 4502C, Behavior Education Plan for Middle and High School Students, as set forth in the documents prepared for the May 22nd, 2017 regular meeting effective September 1, 2017, with the exception of any separations that board members request.
And Mary, if I could suggest separations be focused on the subsection.
So any separations will be by subsection. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Dean seconds? Okay.
I'd like to separate one item.
Okay, which item?
Dress code, which is section name dress code and subsection name dress code. So it's the last page.
Okay.
So it's section and subsection dress code.
Okay.
And while I have the floor, I'd like to extend thank you and appreciation for the very last-minute changes on the behavior chart in response to last-minute suggestions from me. And I think we all want that to read the same way. And I think it comes closer to doing that now. I'm not sure it's quite right there, but I think we move closer, and so I really appreciate the responsiveness on that, because that was very last minute.
So. And James?
Yeah, I just have a general question, because I'm not separating out anything. Because we're going to be doing BEP throughout the summer, and we have the review later in the summer. What's the incorporation? For example, we're running a pilot at some of our high schools. So how do we incorporate the pilot information into this? So can you comment on that? Because if we've already made changes and have the document, the pilots are still going on, how do we, because one of my questions I've always had is that we have these pilots, but I don't recall reports coming to the board saying, okay, we had the pilot and here's the findings of those pilots.
Sure.
So we have a cell phone pilot going on. So how is that pilot information included in this BEP documentation?
The pilot information isn't included in the policy change per se, but it is included as part of the actions that we're taking, that grid of actions, which is all about kind of pulling the policy work apart from the practice work. I think that Dylan, if you want to chime in on this, I think it's possible. For sure, what we learn from the pilot will be incorporated into our practice.
So you're saying, though, then, that the pilot won't inform policy at all?
Well, it can, but I don't.
So, but then we won't be able to incorporate it here.
The current policy language is agnostic to what students are accessing via their device when they're using it in a manner that either distracts from their own or other learning, right? So the pilots themselves deal with the availability of either apps or the availability of Wi-Fi generally. So they go to the ability to students to access in a disruptive or distracting way, but ease of access, the policy is agnostic to. It says don't do it, and if you continue to do it, here are the progressive interventions and the progressive response.
Okay, I understand. So you're saying then that the pilot won't inform policy. I guess I don't agree with that, but I hear what your position
James,
is.
though, to your point, following last week's meeting, we did add response level 3 to the unauthorized use of electronics to address that disruptive nature of technology as a part of the school fabric.
Yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that. But just my overall point is that we run these pilots, but we don't seem to use the information to make changes. This pilot will end at the end of the school year, but we're voting on that policy tonight, which says to me that we won't be able to do anything with these policy suggestions until the following year. So that to me just seems to be
I just want to make sure we stay on the topic of actually the policy. And James, your question was with regards to if anything with regards to either the pilot or anything else that comes up requires policy changes, there's nothing that stops it from coming back to the board if needed.
That's an excellent point, Mary. Yeah.
Okay. So separation?
It's not a separation, just two comments quick.
Okay.
One, I agree with TJ and the whole negative in front of stereotypes just for ease of access.
We'll get to that.
We haven't gotten to that point.
Sorry.
So we'll be right back to you.
We're still doing separations, and sorry I got ahead of myself.
No apologies. Any separations? Any further? Okay. Back to, Nikki, I'm going to take it to TJ for an opening on that, and then be right back to you.
Great.
And if
Do we want to approve the pending motion
approve
and
the
then
pending motion.
Yeah, thank you.
talk about the
Okay,
separation?
so then am I your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so that passes 6-1-0. Okay.
All right. You know, I'm very proud of the work our students in our district have done around the Native American mascot policy. When it first came before us, I had some serious concerns around free speech issues from listening to the students, reading the materials they prepared and their allies prepared, talking with Dylan, that we carefully crafted these, that the limitations on free speech were as minimal as they can be in this case. And I think part of that minimalization was the inclusion of the word negative to describe the stereotypes. Based on feedback from students who have, and others who have stated that any depiction of Native Americans is harmful, or any stereotypical depiction, there's a proposal before us to remove the word negative from both the generalized stereotypes of specific gender, race, ethnicity, national religion, sexual orientation, or disability, as well as the attire with Native American team names, logos, or mascots that depict stereotypes, et cetera, et cetera. So the word negative appears currently in 2 places. I think that we are going too broad. And I think that we are infringing upon free speech. We are creating enforcement problems. You know, the examples I used in the email I sent today was, you know, the Minnesota Vikings. It's certainly a stereotype. It's certainly of an ethnic group. And though under the Tinker standard, as Dylan pointed out, that it would be difficult to ban a Minnesota Vikings t-shirt, under this language, my understanding is that it would be covered. And so to create that confusion and lack of clarity is not something I want to do. I would be open to, and Dylan may accept this or not, I would be open to changing the word negative to disruptive stereotypes or disruptive depictions, where clothing with disruptive words, pictures, or caricatures based on stereotypes of a specific negative stereotype, remove negative and add disruptive. Because that's the Tinker language. So that's, otherwise I just want to remove negative. So, I mean, I want to keep negative. I want to keep negatives.
Yeah. Both negatives or the first negative?
You made a good case that the second one is disruptive inherently, but just for parallelism.
So you want both negatives?
I want both negatives.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I understand the discussion on Tinker and red line being on the more disruptive, Tinker being not losing your rights as a schoolhouse gate. What I worry about is, again, as TJ says, it's overbroad. And I worry about the word disruptive because what constitutes disruptive? I don't want to be the language police on who says what considers a disruption in class. Are we banning a breast cancer t-shirt that has certain words on it? Are we going to ban the logo of the Florida Seminoles, which right now is approved by the Seminole tribe? Those kind of questions do seriously concern me, and therefore I think negative should be left in both situations.
James.
Yeah, I will not be supporting any change to this one. When this entire discussion came up, we had an entire audience of people here. Very broad group of people, very diverse backgrounds. I look around this table, we don't have the diversity around this table to really, we can voice our opinions and we have a right to do so. But when we start, in my view, when we start delving into these types of issues around cultural issues, I like to get those people to have their input into it before I start making changes here. I like to know what the Native American population, we had our student groups come in. That was a huge discussion. We had people from the university come in to talk on this subject. And so I, for one, will support the language. I think a lot of the images we have in society should be banned. That's my view, but those are my opinions. And so, but I would rather have a much broader discussion about the affected groups before I start making those changes. I certainly, I just can think of many groups that I would like their input before I start making changes that affect them.
Jen?
Mary, Dylan can probably speak more on this because she was involved, but I do want to make sure the board knows that this recommendation actually doesn't just come from us. We are forwarding it to you from the Native American mascot and logo group, which included parents, staff, university partners. How big was that group? It was a very, about 20 stakeholders that worked over months to talk with us about how to implement the new dress code policy as it relates to Native American stereotypes or to logos. And in their argument, they had wished they had actually maybe caught it and had the debate before the original proposal came to the board that you approved. But their argument was mainly that the term negative for them, that any stereotype of a Native American person is inherently negative. And that was their reason for wanting to remove it. And maybe you can add a little bit more to that, Dylan.
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate TJ's efforts on the paralleling, and quite frankly, I would prefer to revert back to negative versus moving to disruptive.
Me too.
Although I would like to, the research around the use of team names, mascots, and logos was broader than quote-unquote negative stereotypes, because much of the argument was, well, it's in honor, it's honorary, it should be, and the research shows that it actually leads both Native American and non-Native American students to kind of caricaturize an entire culture. And so even if it was intended to be a quote-unquote positive stereotype, which may in itself be oxymoronic or may not, that the impact that the use of an honorary logo was having was detrimental both to the psyche and the psychology of Native American students, but was creating false impressions of superiority in other non-impacted groups. And so the representation from the title, or the pushback from the Title VII group, which was fair, was that at least negative stereotypes with respect to the Native American team names, mascots, and logos. And then I just carried it to the broader language,
yeah.
Even though there is less of a research base for the first removal of negative.
You know, I haven't made a motion yet. I'm going to make one now, and I'm going to make one that is partially responsible to the issues that Jen and Dylan raised. And the motion is that we restore the first negative and leave the second deletion. So we restore the negative, modifying general stereotypes of specific gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, but on the specific case of Native American team names, logos, mascots, we go with the broader.
Yeah,
So that's the motion I'm going to make, if there's a second.
I would agree with that.
I mean, I made the motion. If there's a second, then there's a second. If not, then it dies. Dies for lack of a second.
Okay, then with that, we will go back to the original version for the section dress code. Under the
So if we have no additional motion, then negative will stay in both places, or we could have if you want some other change to the dress code at all, we can have another motion. Does that make sense?
Hearing.
What's that?
So because it was separated, and so no changes have been voted on for this section, so either if there's no vote, then the changes aren't approved, and it just reverts to the current language, or there could be some other motion with respect to this section of...
Or someone could move the language.
So somebody needs to move the MMSD proposed changes, is that correct?
If...
To include the word negative preceding the word stereotype in the dress code language.
To get rid of the word negative.
See, it says included the thing. I'm reading it the same way it says, to include the word negative.
Yeah, so we need to make the motion to remove as.
Can I clarify for the board? The proposal that the administrative team is forwarding is to remove the word negative, despite the way that it's written here. So I just want to make sure to clarify.
The chart says include.
Yeah, I'm just saying
Error on my
that.
part, which would be to include that.
We are asking to remove the word negative because the term stereotype, certainly in the case of Native American logos and mascots, is implied.
Dylan, would you suggest the motion then?
So the motion could just be to modify the dress code in 4502B and C to remove the term negative as it precedes the word stereotype on page 46.
Both places.
In both places.
Yes. And so that would be a motion by Kate.
Second. Any discussion? Am I your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. 3. So that passes 4-3. Yes.
Wait a minute.
Can I recall that?
Who's the third?
I voted for it. I made a mistake.
So you want to, so Dean, you want to keep the word negative or remove the word negative?
I want to vote against this.
What do you?
And I voted for it.
Okay.
So as I think we should revert back.
Okay. So do you want the word negative or not?
No. Now that was.
Okay, then
that
you voted,
was,
then you voted in favor of the motion that was
excuse me,
made.
I drifted off from it. So the recommendation from this group was to remove it?
Yes.
The stakeholder group wanted to remove the word negative, specifically as it relates to Native American mascots, logos.
Never mind.
Yes.
So,
I
which
withdraw
would
that.
have
I'll just-
probably been in alignment with TJ's recommendation.
I'm just.
Please fix it.
Yeah, okay, I think we got that.
I think we're good.
Yeah, okay.
I voted.
I voted against.
Yep.
Our next meeting will be June 12th, and I would imagine budget is going to be on it. And with that, that's the report from the operations work group.
Thank you. From the operations work group. Okay, next item on the agenda, other reports to the board. City of Madison Education Committee.
I'm happy to report that we didn't, well, I'm not happy to report, but we did not meet, so I have nothing to report.
All right, well, thank you, Anna. Student Senate.
Just really quickly, we handed out pens to the teachers. That's what we purchased. And we hope they enjoyed them. We handed them out at the high schools, but we'd like to expand in upcoming years. And then we'll be re-administering the health survey, and we're filming promotional videos to increase our attendance for the 2017 to 2018 school year, and we have new members we recognized.
Thank you. Okay, we have something from the ERO group.
Yes, the ERO ad hoc committee met on May 17th, 2017. The focus of the meeting was to explore diverse perspectives, which we did. We invited a number of groups, and Focus Interruption Coalition and the YWCA both joined us to share some information in their position. We had an excellent discussion. We also reviewed our next phases of work and responded to some questions. So our next meeting will be held on June 21st, 2017 to continue to explore diverse perspectives.
And for the new board members, I just would like to say that when we created this committee, one of the terms was that that there are 3 board members appointed to the committee, but any board members may attend and participate fully other than voting. We haven't had a vote yet, so that would mean participating fully. And so Nikki and Kate, you're more than welcome to join us in one of these meetings, as are the previous board members. So.
Thank you, appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. You've been attending, about half of them.
Okay, all right, thanks, Anna. Okay, employee handbook process. I'm going to move that the Board of Education approve revisions to Section 18 of the MMSD employee handbook as set forth in the document prepared for the regular meeting dated May 22nd, 2017, effective immediately.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or discussions?
I just want to say thank you for the responsiveness to the issues I raised last year concerning the handbook revision process, and I'm glad to see this in place. And yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. Amaya?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Are there any old or new business to be brought before the board tonight? Sure about that? Seeing none? Seeing none, I move adjournment.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.